Appreciate it.
And we're going to get some weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to a GB News weather update from the Met Office. We hold on to strong winds today. There is a Met Office wind warning in force across England and Wales. Heavy showers with the best of any sunshine across the south. So like I said, there is a wind warning in force. Gusts of up to 60 to 70 miles per hour is possible. We'll hold on to frequent showers across Northern Ireland, Northern England, into Wales as well, merging to give longer spells of rain. Likewise for parts of Scotland, but it's the south of England that holds on to some sunny spells, but blustery showers rattling their way through. Highs here of 18 to 19 degrees, but feeling rather cool in any heavy downpours and with the strong winds. So through Monday evening, there'll be some late evening sunny spells across the northern half of Scotland, but still holding on to some showers here. Likewise, it's a similar story elsewhere. Showers, especially across Northern Ireland and northern parts of England. Some of these could be heavy with the odd rumble of thunder as well. And we still hold on to those strong winds, gusts of 45 to 55 miles per hour, but they'll generally start easing as we go through Monday night as the area of low pressure tracks its way eastwards. The focus for the showers overnight into Tuesday then across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and sinking their way southwards. Either side of that holding on to clear skies, but otherwise temperatures generally ranging from 9 to 13 degrees to start Tuesday. So Tuesday promises a brighter start for many of us, especially across Scotland and southern parts of England. We still hold on to a few showers, especially across northern parts of England, perhaps even a few bubbling up across parts of Wales, but otherwise lighter winds, a bit more of a calmer day out there before sunshine turns hazy from the west. Highs up to 18 or 19 degrees. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. A collision on the M25 in Kent has closed the clockwise entry slip at Junction 3. In Northamptonshire, the A14 westbound is partially closed between junctions 11 and 10 due to a collision. The M53 northbound on the Wirral is down to one lane between junctions 2 and 1. One lane is closed on Gloucestershire's M5 southbound between junctions 11A and 12. Traffic is slow with congestion southbound at junction 14 on the M1 in Milton Keynes. And on the trains, there is disruption on Chiltern Railways between Barely and Stratford-upon-Avon and cross-country services from Nuneaton to Hinckley. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
There's a big change in the age of parents, so first-time parents are getting older and older. There's been a significant increase in the number of men over 60 becoming fathers, a 15% increase in just 1 year, and an increase in the number of babies born to foreign parents. But what's really, really concerning is that what's called the total fertility rate, that's the average number of babies that each woman has over her childbearing life, has gone down again, and it's now at a record low, just 1.41 children on average per woman, and of course we need about 2.1 to have a stable population. Now, a lot of people think, well, why don't we want the population to decline? We've been warning about burgeoning population for 50, 60 years now, but I think the really important factor to consider here is it's not really the overall size of the population that matters so much as the proportion of young to old, because that is what we need in order to have enough people working, enough people paying taxes to support people who are retired, to support people who are sick. And that is going down and down and down with huge economic consequences.
Do the figures divide it so that they can say whether the children are of African heritage or of this or of that? Does it tell you those sorts of statistics as well? And if so, what are the What are they?
Yes, so we know the nationality of mothers who give birth. And in terms of foreign mothers, the greatest number of babies are born to women of Indian and Pakistani heritage. So they are the biggest numbers, the biggest nationalities. But I think what's really important to note is that even with the huge and unpopular levels of immigration that we've had, even with those levels, the birth rate is still falling and the ratio of young to old is still going down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. It's 9:30 on Monday, the 15th of September, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the first return flights to France for migrants who illegally cross the Channel are expected to take off this week. Will it be au revoir?
Well, there's likely to be a slew of legal challenges, but the government will be hoping that at least some of these migrants will be returned this week. But 5,500 have arrived since this deal came into being.
And is the government in crisis? It certainly feels like it. Backbench Labour MPs warning Sir Keir Starmer he's in the last chance saloon. They're rallying around the banner of the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham.
And sticking with the Prime Minister, he says the UK will not surrender its flag to those who use it as a symbol of fear and division, after more than 150,000 people gathered in London to champion British culture at Tommy Robinson's Freedom of Speech rally this weekend.
Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.
The familiar tones of Winston Churchill as the UK marks the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Britain today, as a new poll reveals, shockingly, 2 in 3 under 40s don't know what it is.
And the world continues to pay tribute to one of the greatest British boxers of all time, Ricky the Hitman Hatton, who has sadly died aged 46.
And should the police be armed? An internal review recommends all frontline Metropolitan Police officers should have guns to tackle knife crime. Find out why that call has been rejected.
And this morning, we're expecting a major announcement from Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. Don't miss it, we'll bring it live to you. Andrew, were you surprised about those figures that 3 in 4 people under the age of 40 don't know what the Battle of Britain is?
I'm afraid it speaks a lot about what we teach in our schools. It's hugely significant. Without the Battle of Britain, we could be speaking German.
Yeah.
The Spitfires, the many, not the few. I mean, incredible.
But everybody is taught about the Second World War in history. I mean, my children are that age at the moment. They all get taught the Second World War almost every year, it seems. So could it just be that it's not a big enough part of our national life that people just forget these things as soon as they leave school? Well,
it's very sad. What do you think? And if you're under 40, do you know anything about the Battle of Britain? Send us your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/yoursay. But first, here's your 60-second news update with Katie Bowen.
Good morning, it's 9:32, your latest news headlines from the GB Newsroom. The Prime Minister is facing further pressure from Labour MPs after he was forced to sack the US ambassador last week. Sir Keir Starmer is reportedly pinning his hopes on President Trump's state visit to regain the initiative and stave off a backbench revolt. Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Alex Burghardt, asked further questions on Lord Mandelson.
Let's deal with this today. The Prime Minister has it in his power to tell us what he knew when. Somebody is going to have to take responsibility for this, and at the moment, nobody is taking responsibility.
Elsewhere, GB News sources have confirmed that deportation flights for Channel migrants entering the UK illegally will leave this week under Sir Keir Starmer's one-in, one-out deal with France. The UK and the US have agreed a deal to boost the building of nuclear plants in both countries. That deal is set to be signed during President Trump's state visit. The prime suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann has refused to speak to British police. The Metropolitan Police sent a so-called international letter of request to 49-year-old Christian Bruckner, who is due to be released from prison in Germany for a separate offence this week. And it's going to be a wet and windy start to the week with gusts of up to 65 miles an hour. The Met Office has issued a yellow weather warning for most of England and all of Wales until this evening. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, welcome to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So, big week, big day, but a really big story on the front page of the Telegraph today saying an internal report recommended that all frontline police officers in the Metropolitan Police, that's our biggest force, are armed. Now, we don't know how many are armed anyway, routinely. Quite a lot routinely, I would say. If you go to an airport, Heathrow, they're all armed, aren't they?
But ordinary bobbies on the beat that patrol the streets aren't armed.
What are they?
Well, I've heard there are still a few of those around.
On the beat?
But it's almost been a badge of honour in this country that our police aren't armed, hasn't it? And we famously say we're police by consent and we don't have a gun problem in this country. But this review was commissioned after a particularly horrific stabbing of police officers in Leicester Square a few years ago. And almost all other countries in Europe, their police routinely carry
France,
handguns.
Italy. And you see the guns and it's intimidating. Yeah. The worry is it would encourage more the lawless tendency to get guns, but they're probably guns already. I think for certain every police officer should have a taser. Currently, I think it's a bizarre system. It's up to the chief constable whether you have tasers or not. And I think it's outrageous that we expect them to go into some of these conflict zones with just a truncheon.
Well, that's what the review says. And if police are becoming increasingly a target for, let's say, stabbings, unless they can actually deter the offender or, frankly, shoot them dead, in that instant, it's too late if you're being stabbed to wait for help. And I don't know, I think it's sad that we've come to this, but I do wonder if the time has come. And we just can't afford for police officers in the line of duty to be seriously injured and even killed.
But then the police officer who pulls his gun to protect the public is then prosecuted, and as we saw in one case, was it this year or last year, charged with murder. Yeah, charged with murder. Now, the jury quickly dismissed that because ordinary people absolutely know the police should be able to do that, but it will put people off from applying to the police. But he was named in court, which I thought was a mistake. He should have been given anonymity. And he's then had to move from his home, and his family's had to go into hiding. Yeah. So, if you arm police, if we arm them, is that what's going to happen every time they use their gun, which they do very rarely in this country, by the way?
That's right.
That's the problem.
Well, I was actually talking to our wonderful makeup artist this morning, who is Greek, and she was saying in Greece, the police do carry guns, they have very low crime rates, but they have to undergo serious psychological testing before they're allowed to be armed.
Interesting.
Because, of course, the worry would be if you become a police officer and you're guaranteed to get a gun, it will attract the wrong kind of people into policing. Yeah. So there's a lot of questions about this, aren't there?
Certainly are. Now, moving on, the Prime Minister has condemned violence against the police at this weekend's Unite the Kingdom rally in central London when, according to some figures, 150,000 people flocked to the capital city to attend the event, which was organised by the far-right activist, I think we can call him that, Tommy Robinson.
Well, writing on social media, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, said, "Britain is a nation proudly built on tolerance, diversity and respect. Our flag represents our diverse country and we will never surrender it to those who use it as a symbol of violence, fear and division."
Is he trying to say, though, the Prime Minister, that every one of those 150,000 people in central London are far-right activists? Because that's an outrage and an insult.
And that's how people will take it. And also, just trotting out this line again and again and again, Britain is built on diversity. It's rubbish. Britain is built on things like strength and vision and an understanding of our national unity.
I know. Well, so interestingly, Clive Lewis, now he's he's a Labour MP. He's Labour MP for Norwich South. He's a man of colour, and he's on the left of the Labour Party. He said this: if Labour and Progressives don't offer that story of if we don't rebuild our national institutions, restore collective pride and re-embed markets within society, the far right will do it for us in their own image. What he was saying was, the government has to listen to those people who were in central London on Saturday who feel they don't have a voice.
Yeah, and his extended Twitter thread actually showed quite a lot of understanding about the kind of things that were driving people to do it. So that's interesting. So we are asking, is the flag fueling division or is it promoting unity? Well, Howard Cox, the founder of Fair Fuel UK, joins us. Howard, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Do you think the Union Jack and the St George's flag have become symbols of aggression, even racism, or are they still there to unite us?
Well, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure, and I couldn't put it better than you, both of you, just now about what happened on Saturday. I mean, it seems that division seems to be a fashionable word these days. I mean, how can anyone claim that waving and displaying the Union flags is divisive in the very country it represents. Division is caused by anti-Britishness, in my opinion. I mean, the unpatriotic people. I was at the Unite the Kingdom Free Speech rally on Saturday, and there's certainly more than 150,000, Andrew. I mean, there were millions there. We waved the flags of our home nations, with thousands from other nations too, also enjoying and proudly waving their flags. I mean, it seems to me division has risen due to the government's policy on immigration, open borders and two-tier judiciary type stuff. And frankly, what happened on Saturday was people coming together from all over the country and from around the world to say they're not putting up this anymore, and they're proud to be British, proud of our history, our culture. And, you know, to say Starmer, you know, coming out with these things, he's actually accusing me, because I was one of those people, of being a far right-wing thug. And I take that very personally, because it's absolutely ridiculous what he's doing. I've spent the last 15 years, as you know well, Andrew, I've known you this time, in campaigning for the motorists and reducing the cost of motoring and fighting governments, all those sorts of things. And I'm being accused now of being a far right-wing thug.
Would you say, Howard, what was most people's motivation to be there? What were they more concerned about? An implied threat to free speech, or are they concerned about the impact on communities caused by the explosion in immigration, legal and illegal?
Well, all of the above, Andrew.
Right.
Seriously, I mean, I spoke to so many people coming up to me. You know, I was very flattered people wanted selfies with me because they said, we wish you were our London mayor, for example, all those sorts of things. And I couldn't believe, I mean, I'll give you one example. In the little disabled area, which was set up for people in wheelchairs, I actually helped push a lady called Sylvie, who's about, I would say, about 83, 84, sitting there, and she was holding a little Union flag, and she was waving it proudly. And I asked her, why are you waving it? She said, because I love my country. So simple, that's what she said. And she was almost tearful, and it brought a bit of a lump to my throat. And the people that came together on Saturday were people worried about the future of our country, and generally worried about what the Prime Minister is doing to our country.
Of course, we had last week the tragic murder of Charlie Kirk, which has rocked the West, actually. I understand that there are quite a few people at the protest holding pictures of Charlie Kirk, almost holding a vigil for him. And was that commonplace? What impact do you think that event last week had on this protest? Did it make it more poignant somehow?
Well, I saw hundreds of people holding little portraits of Charlie Kirk, and of course we had the Elon Musk intervention at the end of the thing, talking at the end from America. Whether you like him or not, he was saying that he's very worried about our country and what's happening to the people of this country regarding our freedom. And Charlie Kirk didn't espouse violence. He didn't push diversity. All he said is he's saying the same thing: give us our country back. In his case, the USA. We're saying it now, and I'm saying it publicly. I'm now part of the Advance UK with Ben Habib, and he spoke. He was the only politician, and all politicians were invited by Tommy Robinson to attend, but no one turned up from anyone else except Ben Habib, and he gave an impassioned plea for democracy and freedom and equality under the law. Those are the sorts of things that we want to stand for. And people there were not far-right thugs. They were decent, honest, decent people, ranging from 90 years of age right down to little 4-year-olds in prams and being pushed around. It was a fabulous day. It was a fabulous festival. I loved it.
It's interesting as well to see so many, Howard, there. I mean, I don't know if it exceeded expectations, but when you think most Saturdays we're seeing this march for Gaza, and I've seen some of those people marching for Gaza with their overtly anti-Semitic posters and banners and placards, and the police allowed that to carry on. Do you think the policing was okay on Saturday?
Well, I thought that the police did very well indeed.
Yeah.
I understand Westminster Council actually tried to stop with 48 hours before the actual rally was taking place. They wanted to remove the licence to do that. The police said, no, you can't do that, partly because thousands and thousands of people were coming to actually that day. You imagine they get there and there wasn't going to be a festival.
That could have been difficult.
Yeah, and the Antifa lot and the anti-fascist group were actually on the Trafalgar Square, and they've admitted. I saw a tweet from one of their groups saying, look, Tommy Robinson got it right. There were hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people there. We had just 5,000. And the police did keep it separate, but unfortunately there weren't enough stewards, and some people were kettles on Westminster Bridge, which is a bit sad. But generally the feeling was, I mean, there was 9 people arrested.
25. I believe there were 25 people arrested.
No, there was 9 people arrested on our side, and the rest were arrested on the Antifa side, the anti-rape fascist side. That's our evidence from the police who gave it to me. And yet at Notting Hill there were 450 arrested, and at the Palestinian thing recently there was 900 arrested. But we're seen as far-right fascist thugs.
And do you think there is a problem with how these events are reported? Because, of course, the vast majority of the protest happened completely peacefully, as you said. But the fact that there was some violence does enable media outlets to portray this as a violent protest where thugs were allowed to attack the police. Do you think more needs to be done by protest organisers to stop this violence, or is this an inevitability when you attract that many people in one small space?
I think it is an inevitability, I'm sorry to say, and it's sad about that. I have to say the police did their best and possible, and I know that the Tommy Robinson people that are organising it have been organising this for 3 or 4 months and sitting down with them and planning carefully where they went from. Unfortunately, you're going to get some idiots, and I don't condone those idiots, none of us do. But the fact is that there are more people arrested at Notting Hill and the various other Palestinian protests than there were on Saturday. This was a peaceful family event, and it was wonderfully represented by those families.
All right, that's Howard Cox from Fairfield UK. Lovely to have you on the programme again, Howard. Always good to talk to you. And actually, look, I've covered demos over the years, and when you think if there was 150,000 Howard says it's a much bigger figure. 25 arrests is frankly quite minor.
It is, absolutely. If you think that temperatures would have been running high and all the events of the previous weeks.
And Howard Cox makes the point of the Notting Hill Carnival, more like 500 arrests, admittedly over a number of days. Now, still ahead, don't you want to miss it, the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage making a major announcement this morning in our time. Stay tuned, listen in, watch.
We're expecting that about 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
But up next, the first flight taking illegal migrants back to France in our coveted one-in, one-out deal are due to take off this week. But will lawyers get in the way?
Of course they will. But first, if you want some holiday sun, stay tuned. Here's where to go.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, well, there's plenty of sunshine across Europe. There are a few showers around, but otherwise it's feeling very warm out there, a bit breezy across parts of Madeira and the Canary Islands, but across much of Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, lengthy sunny skies, and across Greece as well, not doing too bad. There are just a few showers towards the north of that, but otherwise a lot of sunshine on offer, temperatures up to 34 degrees.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, Dame Helen Mirren has said that despite being a feminist, she believes the next James Bond has to be a chap.
OK, she said that she believes it just doesn't work, and by having a woman as Bond, the project becomes something else entirely.
So we are asking the question, could Bond ever be a woman?
Well, we're joined by a former what is termed Bond girl, Jenny Hanley, and and there is, we weren't expecting you, but it's really 007 podcast contributor John Kell there as well. Jenny, you've been there, done it, got the T-shirt, been involved in it. What's your take?
I think James Bond has to be a male, because he came from the imagination of Ian Fleming. If you want a female 007, don't ride on his coattails and take the fame that has come from his character, James Bond. Write your own.
Yeah, you see, that's what I tend to think. But
No, I just think that you just go 007. The problem is, right, the last Bond film, he died. James Bond died. I mean, there was a... Oh, sorry.
Great, I haven't seen that one.
Sorry. Yeah. I think everybody pretty much now knows that he definitely... I mean, there was an absolutely... It wasn't even did he or didn't he, can he or can he not survive. It was 100% gone. So it's now time for a clean... The nice thing about a clean sheet, surely, John, is that you can actually go, right, so 007, let's do the 007, and then we can do different stories, because the books that have been written by Ian Fleming have been well and truly milked, haven't they?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 to 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, GB News sources have confirmed the first deportation of Channel migrants back to France is set to take place this week.
Well, that's part of the government's so-called one-in, one-out deal with France.
Totally inappropriately named deal.
Thousands in, couple out if you're lucky.
Yeah.
The Home Office security staff are expected to escort asylum seekers on commercial flights.
Well, let's talk to Home Security Editor Mark White, who is our top source on this, who tells us that the flight's going possibly as early as tomorrow, Mark?
Or even as early as today.
Right.
The sources that we've been speaking to are reluctant to put a day on it because they know there's likely to be a slew of legal challenges, as we saw with Rwanda, that crippled the opportunity or the hope that the Conservative government had back then to get a particular flight off to Rwanda. And then it was mired in court challenges for not just months, but for years. It was just an absolute mess that the Conservatives had to deal with. Now, you would imagine that it could be a bit more straightforward this time around, because in essence, what's happening is these migrants are being returned to a safe country, the country that they were immediately in before coming to the UK. However, we know that these legal teams, these lawyers representing migrants, have become expert at finding a particular angle to challenge in the courts, whether it's family members here and the right to a family life, whether it's the trauma that they might have suffered that means being sent back from the UK to France would be too traumatic for them, incarceration for too long, whatever it might be, they will try that. And even just the process of trying it in the courts, even though there might be not that much merit to the challenge, is likely to slow it down by at least a day or two for the court to hear it.
But we could get into the position, Mark, presumably one in, one out. So the up to 50 or so who might be going this week, if none of them go out because it's blocked by legal challenges, 50 then come in from France. So it's lots in and none out.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, the fact is, it was the 5th, 6th of August when this deal was operationalised. And in that time, we've had, as you say, 5,500 plus who've come across. It's not one in, one out. The government would love us to talk about one in, one out. It never has been. It's nowhere near even a partial returns deal. The word partial does some very heavy lifting when you consider that at most this week there's probably not going to be any more than 50 who will be returned to France. The government hopes that there will be a regular drumbeat of returns, and that eventually they can sort of expand that. But that relies on France, for a start, being willing to accept larger numbers coming across to France. We just want to show you...
But that could all change politically because we're going to get a new government.
Well, exactly. There's real issues in France at the moment that's delaying, for instance, the pushback policy, the policy of the marine police pushing these boats back to shore. But just before we go, I just want to show you images of the Channel this morning. This is the only real deterrent for these small boats crossing. We're going to get Storm Force 10 winds in the Channel today. completely impassable for these small boats to cross. And we've had quite a lot of that recently. So I suggest maybe the government praying for bad weather is probably a better plot.
They need to invest in a wind machine.
Well, exactly. Well, thank you so much, Mark. And still coming up, we'll be talking about other pressures on the Prime Minister as backbench MPs threaten to revolt over the Lord Mandelson scandal. Are his days numbers at number 10? Don't go anywhere. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to a GB News weather update from the Met Office. We hold on to strong winds today. There is a Met Office wind warning in force across England and Wales. Heavy showers with the best of any sunshine across the south. So like I said, there is a wind warning in force. Gusts of up to 60 to 70 miles per hour is possible. We'll hold on to frequent showers across Northern Ireland, Northern England, into Wales as well, merging to give longer spells of rain. Likewise for parts of Scotland, but it's the south of England that holds on to some sunny spells, but blustery showers rattling their way through. Highs here of 18 to 19 degrees, but feeling rather cool in any heavy downpours and with the strong winds. So through Monday evening, there'll be some late evening sunny spells across the northern half of Scotland, but still holding on to some showers here. Likewise, it's a similar story elsewhere. Showers, especially across Northern Ireland and northern parts of England. Some of these could be heavy with the odd rumble of thunder as well. And we still hold on to those strong winds, gusts of 45 to 55 miles per hour, but they'll generally start easing as we go through Monday night as the area of low pressure tracks its way eastwards. The focus for the showers overnight into Tuesday then across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and sinking their way southwards. Either side of that holding on to clear skies, but otherwise temperatures generally ranging from 9 to 13 degrees to start Tuesday. So Tuesday promises a brighter start for many of us, especially across Scotland and southern parts of England. We still hold on to a few showers, especially across northern parts of England, perhaps even a few bubbling up across parts of Wales, but otherwise lighter winds, a bit more of a calmer day out there before sunshine turns hazy from the west. Highs up to 18 or 19 degrees. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News traffic and travel report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. In Greater London, a serious incident on the M25 anti-clockwise at junction 29 has closed all lanes. In Kent, the M25 clockwise entry slip at junction 3 is closed due to a collision, with normal conditions expected by 1:45 this afternoon. In Northamptonshire, a collision on the A14 westbound between junctions 11 and 10 has closed all lanes, with normalcy expected after midday. Drivers in Newcastle upon Tyne on the A1 northbound should anticipate lane closures until later this morning. And on the trains, disruptions are reported on Chiltern Railways between Barley and Stratford upon Avon. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News traffic and travel report.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Monday the 15th of September. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So the government say, they won't tell us quite when, but the first return flights to France for migrants who are illegally across the Channel will take off this week. But will it be au revoir?
And are we seeing a government in crisis? Well, backbench Labour MPs warn Sir Keir Starmer that he is in the last chance saloon as they rally around the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham.
Yes, just a year after winning one of the biggest majorities in British electoral history, Keir Starmer is now holding on to the premiership by the tips of his fingers. Could Donald Trump be his unlikely saviour? Find out more with me very soon.
And staying with the Prime Minister, he says Britain will not surrender its flag to those who use it as a symbol of fear and division after more than 150,000 people gathered in London to champion British culture at Tommy Robinson's Freedom of Speech rally at the weekend.
Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.
Winston Churchill there, and of course the United Kingdom marks its 85th anniversary of the Battle of Britain today, as a new poll reveals that 2 in 3 people under 40 don't know what it is.
Whether it's the beautiful hurricane behind me, the Spitfire that we're also here within the Hangar 42 in Blackpool, we're going to be finding out all about their role in the Battle of Britain and especially the role of Blackpool. Find out more.
Well, here in Kent, a service of remembrance is taking place. A 2-minute silence at 11 o'clock, remembering the sacrifice and bravery shown by the few.
And should the police be armed, an internal review recommended all frontline officers in the Metropolitan Police should be given guns to tackle knife crime. We're going to tell you why that report was rejected.
And coming up this morning, we're expecting a major announcement from Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. Don't miss it.
Still reeling from the fact 2/3 of people under the age of 40 don't know anything about the Battle of Britain. My dad and his fellow children, he was one of 5, they were evacuated, but it was what they called the phony war. Nothing much happened. So he came back to London because nothing was happening on the day the bombs dropped. So the Battle of Britain, my dad led, and he then stayed in London for the duration of the war, and they used to sleep in the underpass at Greenwich.
Wow.
That's where they slept every night
That's amazing.
while the bombs fell. Amazing.
My grandparents lived in Kent. They were small children when the war started, and my grandfather was evacuated to Wales, but my grandmother stayed in Kent because her mum wouldn't let her go.
Right.
And the stories of, sadly, children dying playing with unexploded bombs and things like that. It's hard to believe that was just a couple of generations ago.
Yeah, my mum was evacuated twice, but Dad said he came back, and his mother said, "Well, now you're here, you might as well stay."
Might as well stay.
And he did, and he loved it, and he had quite a good time.
Incredible resilience. Well, we'd love to know what you think about the Battle of Britain and all the other topics we're discussing today. Send your views and comments to gbnews.com//
you'll say. But first, here's the headlines with Katie Bowen.
Miriam, Miriam, Andrew, thank you and good morning. The headlines at 3 minutes past 10. The Prime Minister is facing further pressure from Labour MPs after he was forced to sack the US ambassador last week. Sir Keir Starmer is reportedly pinning his hopes on President Trump's state visit to regain the initiative and stave off a backbench revolt. Reports over the weekend suggest that the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, is set to launch a leadership bid to oust Sir Keir Starmer as Labour leader. The pressure comes as the Prime Minister sacked former American Ambassador Lord Mandelson over his relationship with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Alex Burghardt, spoke to GB News earlier.
Last week, we were calling on the government to just come clean about what had happened with the whole Mandelson affair so that it didn't overshadow this visit. It's a very important visit by the President of the United States. They haven't done that. It's dragged on into this week, and we're going to be trying again today to get the government to publish all of the Mandelson Epstein files so that everybody can see what the Prime Minister knew, when he knew it, and how this appointment came to be made in the first place.
Elsewhere today, GB News sources have confirmed that deportation flights for Channel migrants entering the UK illegally will leave this week. Sources will not, however, confirm reports that the first flight will leave today. Under Sir Keir Starmer's one-in, one-out deal with France, asylum seekers who arrived in the UK last month have been issued with formal removal directions, telling them they'll be deported back to France within 5 days. Those returns are now reportedly imminent. There are reports that asylum seekers will be escorted by Home Office security staff on commercial Air France flights rather than a chartered aircraft. The UK and the US have agreed a deal to boost the building of nuclear plants in both countries. That deal is set to be signed during the state visit. Downing Street said this week we'll see a, quote, step change in the so-called special relationship between the two nations, as the leaders are also expected to sign a tech partnership. The Atlantic Partnership for Advanced Nuclear Energy is expected to enable deals between companies in the UK and the US. It aims to make it quicker for businesses to build nuclear power stations by cutting red tape around projects. The prime suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann has refused to speak to British police. The Metropolitan Police sent a so-called international letter of request to 49-year-old Christian Bruckner, who is due to be released from prison in Germany this week. The German national has never been charged in the McCann case and denies all involvement. He has now rejected the Met's request to speak to him over the disappearance of the 3-year-old in 2007. A man in his 30s has been arrested on suspicion of rape after a Sikh woman reported a, quote, racially motivated attack while on her way to work. The victim, reported to be a British-born Sikh in her 20s, told officers a racist remark was made to her during the incident in Oldbury last Tuesday. The perpetrators allegedly told the woman, "You don't belong in this country, get out," as they sexually assaulted her, the Sikh Federation said. West Midlands Police said the man was detained yesterday evening and remains in custody. 15-year-old Owen Cooper has made history by becoming the youngest ever male Emmy winner at the awards in Los Angeles overnight. Cooper, the star of Netflix drama Adolescence, won the award for Outstanding Supporting Actor, despite only having his first acting class just 2 years ago. Adolescence took home 6 awards in total, with the writers Jack Thorne and Stephen Graham also receiving gongs at the Emmys. And it's set to be a wet and windy start to the week with gusts of up to 70 miles an hour. The Met Office has issued a yellow weather warning for most of England and all of Wales until this evening. Travel disruption, large waves affecting coastal areas and power outages are expected. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Miriam and Andrew.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom live across the UK on GB News with Andrew and Miriam.
Well, let's see what you've been saying on gbnews.com/your say. Lots of comments about the marches at the weekends, but also about the Battle for Britain, Andrew. And Dawn says, I've checked all the TV channels and there is no tribute at all on any channel for the Battle of Britain. Thank you, GB News, for your coverage. No wonder the young don't know our history.
Very good point, isn't it? Well, you think the BBC, with its vast resources, Miriam,
yeah,
and it's even got a history channel,
right,
might be doing something.
Yeah, such an important day.
Yeah.
But I do think it does go back to, yes, we do need to teach these things in school, but actually, how much of what you were taught in school. Do you remember? You need to keep repeating these things in culture and media, otherwise people do forget once they've not been at school for a few years.
I don't remember being taught about the Battle of Britain in school, actually.
I think
I knew about it from my dad,
yes,
as I say,
because
he lived through it.
That's it.
And of course, people my age, their parents lived through it, grandparents lived through it.
Yeah.
So we talked about it. It was an issue that we talked about.
And even when I was at school, there were Second World War veterans who would come into school to teach us. That's no longer the case. We're going to have to work much harder to keep the memories alive.
To make it more relevant.
That's right. Well, keep your views and comments coming in on gbnews.com/your say.
Now, the Prime Minister, I think, some people say he's clinging on to his premiership. Look, he's in big trouble over the Lord Manson scandal, and there is a massive revolt on the Labour backbenchers.
Well, let's speak to GB News political correspondent Livia Utley, who joins us in the studio. Good morning, Livia. Thank you so much for coming in. Starmer's unpopular, but surely this threat to his leadership can't be serious.
Well, I think maybe we're all getting a bit ahead of ourselves with the idea that Keir Starmer is about to go. Remember, of course, that he won one of the biggest majorities in UK political history just over a year ago. It really doesn't feel like that now. But there certainly are rumblings. There are a few MPs who are speaking out openly, Clive Lewis among them, Rosina Allen-Carr as well, Emily Thornberry, who, of course, was snubbed by Keir Starmer when he became Prime Minister. They're all muttering about the future of his leadership. And it sounds as though, from speaking to Labour MPs, in the tea rooms, there are, and on the WhatsApp groups, perhaps more personally, there are lots of people who are very worried about his leadership. Lord Mandelson is almost the straw that seems to be breaking the camel's back. This is by no means the first instance of Keir Starmer showing poor political judgment. There are obviously questions about why Lord Mandelson was hired in the first place as US ambassador, but the more pertinent questions for now are why, when Number 10 received this very, very damaging cachet of emails on Tuesday morning, Keir Starmer then sacked Mandelson on Thursday, but in the meantime, on Wednesday, he came out in Parliament and roundly defended the US ambassador. And exactly the same thing happened with Rayner about 2 weeks before.
Now, that's the nub of it, isn't it, Olivia? Because and people are saying, he's so busy, he didn't see the full content of what was in there. Why wouldn't somebody have speed read that and said, Prime Minister, what you need to know is that there are emails where Mandelson, A, challenges whether he should have even been convicted for the paedophile conviction in the first place, refers to how he loves him on the eve of him going to prison. Best pal. It was devastating, and yet he was led to believe that nobody bothered to make the Prime Minister aware of how explosive these emails were, particularly when on Tuesday night Mandelson gave that interview in the United States to The Sun, where he said there was more to come, and it was really embarrassing. Why didn't they read it then?
Well, exactly.
You know, they had hours in which to protect the Prime Minister, and he could have gone into the chamber and said, the emails are unacceptable, he's out.
And lots of Labour MPs who don't want to start talking about the idea of deposing a Prime Minister, they're sort of shifting the direction onto advisers, saying that Morgan McSweeney should have told him, etc., etc. But ultimately, of course, the buck stops with the Prime Minister himself. And there are just huge questions over why he went out on Wednesday. Kemi Badenoch, I thought, actually did a very good job. Sometimes she's not like good at kind of forensic analysis, but she used all of her questions to ask about Peter Mandelson. And Keir Starmer roundly defended him, exactly as he did with Angela Rayner. And the political missteps don't seem to just be about personnel. There are also the bigger policy issues. So we've had big U-turns from the Prime Minister on winter fuel and on welfare too. All four of these things, those two policy issues and those two personnel issues, it felt as though most people in the country knew that Keir Starmer was going to have to change his mind, was going to have to U-turn before he did. And he expended a lot of political capital, both on Rayner, Mandelson and these two policy issues as well.
Do you think part of it, though, is that there has been a big culture shift, possibly driven by social media and 24/7 news cycle? You know, Margaret Thatcher made a huge number of mistakes. You know, the poll tax crisis was seen as
that brought her down in the end.
Eventually, but do you think that the whole time has just been squeezed now, that Prime Ministers just can't cope with a single scandal now before there are calls for them to be deposed?
Well, I think there's an element of this, and what's so interesting is that Keir Starmer is essentially living through exactly the same as Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak lived through. The problem for him, of course, is that Labour, understandably, as you would as the political opposition at the time, said that this government of scandal couldn't go on, and that Keir Starmer was going to be a totally different kind of Prime Minister. The politics that would tread lightly on people's lives. I mean, it really does not feel at the moment as though politics is treading lightly on our lives. Going back to that question of whether Keir Starmer is imminently about to go, the person who people seem to be coalescing round as a possible replacement for Starmer is Andy Burnham. He's quite an impressive former Mayor of Greater Manchester. He has achieved some good things as Mayor of Greater Manchester. He's popular among the rank and file of the Labour Party, but there are some practical hurdles over how he would get there. He doesn't have a parliamentary seat. He said he's going to stay on as Mayor of Manchester until the end of 2028. Would he be able to win a by-election at the moment? It doesn't seem as though there's any safe seat for Labour.
Nigel Farage says, as Reform UK, they would fight like hell to stop Burnham winning.
They're so low in the polls, it'd be hard to see which seat he could comfortably win. Olivia, thank you so much. Well, it's the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Britain, and events will be taking place to honour the huge aerial battle from World War II.
On this day in 1940, the Luftwaffe launched its largest and most concentrated attack against London, which was repelled by the RAF and marked a turning point in the war.
Well, Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick has posted this video on X.
Well, it's a bit self-indulgent, but I've wanted to do this since I was a boy. But I'm in a Spitfire for an important reason. To bring attention to and commemorate the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Britain. 1 in 5 pilots died. They never came back. Many more were seriously injured. At one stage, the life expectancy of a Spitfire pilot was 6 weeks.
Wow, what a fantastic video.
Extraordinary. Just remind me, Robert Jenrick's brief is Shadow Justice Secretary, not Shadow Defence or Shadow Fire.
Promoting the national interest, I think, is what he was saying his brief is. Well, we're now joined by GB News national reporters Jack Carson and Will Godley. Jack, I think you've got actual planes behind you. Tell us about where you are and what we're doing for Battle of Britain commemoration.
Well, we're here in the Spitfire Visitor Centre in Blackpool. This hangar was built in 1939. It's the only original hangar left here at the airfield. Behind me is a beautiful Hurricane. Of course, they were key to the Battle of Britain's success. I want to bring in Paul Lomax. He's one of the founding members. Paul, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Just tell us about the role that 85 years ago the Hurricane was playing in the Battle of Britain.
Well, as you rightly said, the Battle of Britain was hard won and fought. The Hawker Hurricane was the aircraft that did, as you mentioned, 75% or more of the kills. This Hurricane behind me is a Mark 1 and now has been fully restored. It has a lot of original parts on and replica parts, but during the Battle of Britain, the Hurricane was tasked with shooting down the twin-engine German Heinkel 111 bomber, because that one was slower. This aircraft was slower, so perfect match to go and do that. The pilots had to go up several times a day, as we know, and that. But the Hurricane was far more adaptable, as well as having bombs attached to it as rolls improved and rockets fired on it.
And of course, the danger that these pilots would have had to have gone through, such a short life expectancy because of the danger that they were facing from those incoming German bombers.
You could only have like a couple of weeks, until you're shot down or you're horribly maimed, unfortunately, But the Hurricane during the Battle of Britain was far easier to go and repair than what Spitfires were, because the Hurricane is half metal, the rest of it is wooden canvas. So easy to repair, faster to go and repair. And you could go and fire like all your 4 Brownings in each wing to shoot down a German bomber, and that.
Well, Paul, that is absolutely fascinating. Thank you to Paul for his knowledge, of that Hurricane. I mean, there's Spitfires all around us here as well in Hangar 42 in Blackpool. It's quite an incredible place to spend Battle of Britain Day, because you can just feel and see and touch all around here, those very planes that would have been defending the skies 85 years ago.
Fascinating. And Will Godley, let's talk to Will Godley, who's in Kent. Will, morning.
Well, morning, Andrew. It's very windy here. It's already scuppered some of our plans. We were due to have a fly past of historic aircraft like some of the ones Jack's with this morning, but that's been cancelled today because the wind is so strong. But there's still going to be a service taking place today at 11 o'clock and 2 minutes silence held as well here, remembering the sacrifice made by the pilots, the gunmen and the other airmen who would have been flying in planes like these behind me, famously, of course, called the Few, after Winston Churchill made a speech 85 years ago where he said, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." Well, they're who will be remembering today at this service. Also, Sir Keith Park, who has been branded a mastermind of the success of the Battle of Britain, one of the Air Chief Marshals looking after the airspace here where I am in Kent. He'll be honoured, and some of his family members will be here as well to pay respects to him. Well, I'm joined now by Dilip Sarkar, historian, expert on the Battle of Britain and honorary patron here as well. Dilip, this is a Battle of Britain day. We're remembering the Battle of Britain today. Why was today so important 85 years ago?
Well, today was the culmination of 2 months of fighting, and in particular a week of very heavy attacks on London. And the losses today really convinced Hitler that the invasion wasn't going to happen. So 2 days later he postponed it, and then on the 12th of October postponed it indefinitely. So today was really the day that flagged up the fact that the Luftwaffe would not prevail.
And there was a huge number of Luftwaffe flying to Britain, over 1,000 85 years ago today. Took Hitler by surprise that Britain won today because their pilots were far more experienced, weren't they?
Well, they were, and their air chief, Hermann Goering, was supremely overconfident, was the problem. And the Germans suffered from terrible intelligence during the Battle of Britain, so their strategy was really misplaced anyway. But at the end of the day, it was down to RAF Fighter Command, RAF Bomber Command too, who were attacking the invasion barges and airfields across the Channel. It was a collective effort, and a lot of the pilots, they were 18, 19, 20, very, very young. So, you know, they deserve to be remembered.
Certainly do, Dilip. Thank you so much for joining GB News. One of those pilots, of course, was John Hemingway, who died earlier this year at the age of 105, the last surviving member of the Few. And the organisers of the service here tell me that's why today, this anniversary, holds particular significance and poignance, the first anniversary where there aren't any surviving members of the Few. And another reason why it's so important to carry that legacy on, as new research today reveals that 2/3 of under 40 don't know what happened 85 years ago in the skies above Britain, and why Robert Jenrick is calling for the Battle of Britain to be on compulsory curriculum across the United Kingdom to keep that legacy going, and reminding everyone why still 85 years on we owe so much to the Few.
Will Godley in Kent, thank you very much for that report. Wonderful seeing those planes there.
And I hope lots of people under 40 are watching this, because that shocking poll showing 2 in 3 people under the age of 40 haven't a clue what the Battle of Britain is about and how significant it was. Really worrying. Well,
maybe today will help. Well, still ahead, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage will be making a major announcement this morning. You don't want to miss that.
Up next, though, the Prime Minister condemning people using the national flag, as he says, as a weapon of division. He's talking about what happened on Saturday in the big rally in central London at the weekend. 150,000 people there. Were you there in central London? How do you feel about the Prime Minister's comments, which I think, frankly, are insulting and patronising?
You're watching Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I remember being introduced to
Ken Bates,
Chelsea
who owned Chelsea, and just asked to sit down with him and then spend the next sort of 2 or 3 hours with him having lunch. And an ex of Donald Trump, Ivana Trump, his wife, and
oh, you had dinner with her?
Yeah, I remember having dinner actually with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Did you?
You said earlier you couldn't think
of anyone. You couldn't think of anyone else listing them.
I can't think of anyone. That literally just literally came into my head.
Hi, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Can we go back to that, please?
Catherine Zeta-Jones was... I used to live in a flat in Fulham, and I'm up at the top of the flat, and I was a sports reporter at the BBC, and I went round to Pizza Express, and I'm sitting eating, having my dough balls and everything else I was having, and reading the back pages of the papers in preparation for the work that I was doing the next day. Yeah. And I walked out of the cafe, and the beautiful, most stunning woman, Catherine Zeta-Jones, was walking by, and she said, "Oh, hello, Eamon." And then Welsh accent.
Really?
Hello, Eamon. How are you? And we were standing talking, and we were nattering away, and she said, "Anyway, why are we standing talking in the street? Have you eaten?"
And I went, said no.
I went, no, I didn't say no. I went, no. And I went inside, and I remember Pizza Express was empty. And the waiter saw me again, and I went and sat down with Catherine, and he said, "And you, sir, are you eating?" And I went, "Yes." He said, "What are you having?" I said, "Could I have the dough balls?" And I've never been able to eat dough balls again since.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
I want Britain to be greater than it ever has been. I want Britain to remain Britain. I think there's something beautiful about being British. And what I see happening is a destruction of Britain. Initially a slow erosion, but a rapidly increasing erosion of Britain with massive uncontrolled migration.
Well, that was Elon Musk speaking at the rally on Sunday in London. And, of course, the controversy since then has been that Keir Starmer has seemed to suggest that the British flag, the English flag, is being used to stoke division. What do you think about that? Well, we've got our panel with us now, Aman Bogle and Sebastian Salek in the studio. Sebastian, should we start with you?
Yeah, English flag is a really funny one because we have allowed it to be co-opted by the far right. And that's a real shame because we have to, like every other country in the world, be able to own our flag and celebrate it for what it is, a symbol of our nation. So I want to see us using it for that reason. It's sad that we think of it, and many people I speak to in my private life, my friends and family say, I just don't feel an attachment to it, and it's because we've allowed it to be taken away from us. That is the real shame, and that's what I'd like to see undone.
But I think, even growing up, flags were never part of national life in this country, whereas you go to America, they are.
You're right. We have a very quiet flavour of patriotism, just like you have many people who are quite quietly religious in this country. Yeah. And we have to respect that as well. It's just in our character.
We don't celebrate St George's Day, we don't celebrate English Day. The Irish celebrate
And also, we've kind of got two flags, and we should bring in Aman because he's actually wearing one.
Yes, indeed.
And so I think some people, if they were to fly a flag, their first thought would be to fly the Union Jack. So it's a little bit confused as it is.
Well, not entirely, Miriam. I mean, the Cross of St George is an integral part of the Union flag, and I think it's pretty evident to people across the country that two go hand in hand, certainly in England. But going back to what Sebastian was saying earlier about being a very sort of quiet patriotism in the UK in the past, well, it was because national identity was a settled matter in Britain in the past. Whereas the failed experiment of multiculturalism, it no longer is. And this whole idea of, you saying, Sebastian, that the flag has been co-opted by the far right, you think that the 500,000 people out there on streets on Saturday were far right? They were not.
Not saying that.
Well, what exactly? They are the ones who are flying
I'm
the
talking
flag.
specifically about Tommy Robinson, who organised.
You think
the
Tommy
protest.
Robinson is far right?
Oh yeah, of course he is.
Do you have an idea of what the far right actually is? I'll tell you what the far right actually is. Far right are people like the Homeland Party, who are actual Nazis. They target the likes of me, the likes of Rishi Sunak, the likes of Vivek Ramaswamy over in the States daily. Right? They do so because they're ethno-nationalists. Tommy Robinson is not an ethno-nationalist.
Tommy Robinson has called
he is a
Islam
a
fascist religion.
Well,
he has said that
do you want to have an argument about whether
we did it
Islam,
last time we were on?
Do you want to have an argument about whether Islam, certainly the way it is professed in the West?
No, we are drifting away from the flag.
I'm making another point about Englishness, which is a little bit more civil, though, because
no, Sebastian, I'm not going to let you get away with labelling Tommy Robinson and people who showed up to his Unite the Kingdom rally as far right.
I crucially didn't say that. The people who turned up...
That's exactly what you just said.
No, it's not. Let's be really honest here. You're being disingenuous. The people who turned up are not universally far right. That's completely unfair to say.
So how is Tommy Robinson far right?
Is far right because he said that Islam is a fascist religion, which I think is really incendiary language.
Between criticising a religion and the way that it may be employed by theocracies in the world that you and I would not like to live in, and criticising actual Muslims, there is a difference between.
Well, he's also called Muslim babies ticking time bombs, which I think is really offensive.
Do you think the United Arab Emirates is far right for being concerned about Islam?
About the UAE. Let's make another point.
I think let's get back to the flag. And I think, do you think though? Let's say there is a point of view that it has been co-opted by the far right. There isn't agreement on that. But can it be reclaimed? And is the fact that more and more people now are displaying these flags, I mean, they've been painted on the mini roundabouts in the town where I live. Can we actually...
Does that make you uncomfortable,
and do you know what I think is an issue is that England in Britain is kind of a default. We've got London in the middle of England, and therefore there's no sense of English identity that is as clear as maybe Welsh or Irish identity, or Scottish identity for that matter. And that's why things like celebrating St George's Day or historic festivals like Midsummer would be really nice to see. And it's a completely non-political thing. It's just a nice thing to come together, and it recreates that sense of English identity that I think we've lost over time because it sometimes does feel like the default. It feels like it's synonymous with being British.
I think Starmer made a mistake politically in attacking the flag this weekend, because 150,000 people were out there, and of course there were some people. We could argue about the far-right definition, but I'd say the majority were good, law-abiding citizens who feel they don't have a voice, and that's why they were there.
Yeah.
And I think they would be insulted and outraged to think that because there were people with the Union flag, that they were under the heel of far-right fascists.
That's true, and I don't think he did insult the flag. But also, what this shows is that people are hurting. I don't really think we've recovered from the 2008 crisis. There is still a lot of economic pain there, and I think that's a large driver of what's going on. So I'm not surprised that people are feeling discontented. You know, a lot of this is about immigration as well, it seems. And that is an issue where I think the government has a mixed record. There are some things they've done very well, and there's also room for improvement, I think it would be fair to say.
Aman, do you think that the government, the Prime Minister, is treading a very difficult line? Because on the one hand, he wants to appeal to his base, which probably don't approve of using the St George's flag, let's be honest, but he also knows that there's a growing political movement in this country to re-establish what it means to be English.
Well, I mean, who could forget the scene of those Palestinian flags flying at the Labour conference just, 3 years ago? But more than that, I mean, isn't it just recently that Keir Starmer refused to wear the Three Lions jersey when England was playing? So the fact that...
I forgot that. What? Did that happen?
Yeah, that did
I don't remember that at all.
Indeed.
He's always wearing the
English.
English.
He's wrong
Always.
Well, he claimed it was the wrong size, but the fact is...
we did. That was a guess.
Well, the fact is that Labour Party and people like Keir Starmer have always been uncomfortable about having a strong national identity that unifies us together. Look, it doesn't matter you're brown, white or black or whatever. If you're here, you're British. And that's the end of it, right?
This is really weird to hear. If you pull out
How is it weird to hear?
If you pull out my Labour membership card, do you know what's on the back of it? A Union Jack.
Do you know why that is?
A Union Jack.
Do you know why that is?
Because this is the country we live in.
Do you know why that is?
A political party, you serve
do you know
the country.
why?
I'm telling you why that is.
I'm telling you why. You tell me what it is.
I'm telling you why it is.
I'm telling you why it is.
Go on.
It's because...
Give me your idea. This is weird. Is anyone else feeling really weird?
It's because Labour has been running scared of... Yes, you can laugh all you like at it, but Labour is the exact same party that has sneered at Patriot, that has sneered at our flag, has never campaigned for a bank holiday on St George's Day until they were held to account at the ballot box with reform surging. That's the reason why you have a union flag on the back of your Labour Party.
We're going to have to leave it there.
You will be back, gentlemen, because we need to get our 60-second news update with Katie Byrne.
Good morning. The headlines at 10:32. The Prime Minister is facing further pressure from Labour MPs after he was forced to sack the US ambassador last week. Sir Keir Starmer is reportedly pinning his hopes on President Trump's state visit to regain the initiative and stave off a backbench revolt. Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Alex Burghardt, asks further questions on Lord Mandelson.
Let's deal with this today. The Prime Minister has it in his power to tell us what he knew when. Somebody is going to have to take responsibility for this, and at the moment, nobody is taking responsibility.
Elsewhere, GB News sources have confirmed that deportation flights for Channel migrants entering the UK illegally will leave this week under Sir Keir Starmer's partial returns deal with France. The UK and the US have agreed a deal to boost the building of nuclear plants in both countries. That deal is set to be signed during President Trump's state visit. The prime suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann has refused to speak to British police. The Metropolitan Police sent a so-called international letter of request to 49-year-old Christian Bruckner, who is due to be released from prison in Germany for a separate offence this week. And it's set to be a wet and windy start to the week with gusts of up to 70 miles an hour. The Met Office has issued a yellow weather warning for most of England and all of Wales until this evening. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Well, coming up next, an internal review recommends all frontline Met officers should be armed with guns to tackle knife crime. Do you want the police to be armed? You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to a GB News weather update from the Met Office. We hold on to strong winds today. There is a Met Office wind warning in force across England and Wales. Heavy showers with the best of any sunshine across the south. So like I said, there is a wind warning in force, gusts of up to 60 to 70 miles per hour is possible. We'll hold on to frequent showers across Northern Ireland, Northern England, into Wales as well, merging to give longer spells of rain. Likewise for parts of Scotland, but it's the south of England that holds on to some sunny spells, but blustery showers rattling their way through. Highs here of 18 to 19 degrees, but feeling rather cool in any heavy downpours and with the strong winds. So through Monday evening, there'll be some late evening sunny spells across the northern half of Scotland, but still holding on to some showers here. Likewise, it's a similar story elsewhere. Showers, especially across Northern Ireland and northern parts of England. Some of these could be heavy with the odd rumble of thunder as well. And we still hold on to those strong winds, gusts of 45 to 55 miles per hour, but they'll generally start easing as we go through Monday night as the area of low pressure tracks its way eastwards. The focus for the showers overnight into Tuesday then across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and sinking their way southwards. Either side of that holding on to clear skies, but otherwise temperatures generally ranging from 9 to 13 degrees to start Tuesday. So Tuesday promises a brighter start for many of us, especially across Scotland and southern parts of England. We still hold on to a few showers, especially across northern parts of England, perhaps even a few bubbling up across parts of Wales, but otherwise lighter winds, a bit more of a calmer day out there before sunshine turns hazy from the west. Highs up to 18 or 19 degrees. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Commuters travelling on the M25 are experiencing significant delays due to an accident at junction 29, which has resulted in lane closures and heavy traffic congestion. Similarly, the entry slip road at junction 3 in Kent is closed, though conditions may improve between 2:30 and 2:45. In Newcastle upon Tyne, a lane remains closed on the A1 northbound following a collision, causing further slowdown in traffic flow. Additionally, train services on Chiltern Railways and cross-country routes are currently facing disruptions, particularly between Barely and Stratford-upon-Avon. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 22 minutes to 11 and you're watching Britain's Newsroom.
So it's time for the Great British Giveaway. Now your chance to be our biggest winner to date, the prize package worth over £104,000. It's a new motorhome and £30,000 in tax-free cash.
Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details of how you could be our next big winner.
It's our biggest, greatest Great British giveaway to date. Your chance to win a prize package worth over £104,000. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primero motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas, sky view roof light, and has all the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure any adventures in your motorhome are taken in style.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck with that. Now, we've had a debate this morning, Andrew. I think we've already disagreed over that after it's revealed that a Metropolitan Police review has recommended that officers in London should be armed with handguns to protect them from the scourge of knife crime.
I've been a long-standing opponent of this, but I think I'm changing my mind. At the very least, they have to have taser.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
I think they should. I think it's outrageous that we send them into battle without them. But I'm beginning to think perhaps we should have them. As Eamon Holmes made the point, they've got them in Northern Ireland.
That's right, and it hasn't made any difference there. I think police are still well trusted. I think the big question is, are the police becoming the target? And if they are,
then
they should absolutely be able to defend themselves.
So currently, guns can be used only by highly trained officers and specialist units. But what we're asking now, is it time to better arm all the police?
Well, we're now joined by former police officer and founder of the Public Safety Foundation, Rory Gagan. Rory, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, you've written a long and pretty passionate piece today in The Telegraph arguing that it's only right that police should carry guns so that they can defend themselves. Why are you arguing that, such a change to the established procedure in the UK?
Yeah, thank you, guys. I mean, I think it's a really important conversation for us to have. And the reason it's come about is in the last sort of 2 years or so, we've had a number of police officers in London seriously stabbed, a lot of them getting sort of high-profile coverage in the media, some of them less so. And the Public Safety Foundation put in freedom of information requests to the Metropolitan Police to find out what reviews had been conducted, what lessons had been learned. And we were given eventually the sort of near-miss reports, the reviews into these incidents. And the police themselves, back in 2022, the review, one of the recommendations, there were 18 recommendations, many of them repeated, but one of them, recommendation 18, was to consider arming the frontline officers in London, which obviously, for instance, as we discovered a few years later in Hainault, which obviously many of the viewers will be familiar with, where officers ended up having to confront a sword-wielding sort of murderer who'd already taken the life of a 14-year-old boy.
Yeah.
You know, those officers obviously didn't all have taser, and in fact, one of the officers who should have had a taser hadn't got a taser because the courses had been cancelled, because instructors had been put on what's called aid, helping other bits of policing. And so basically these reviews paint a picture of sort of long-standing sort of systemic neglect of the front line, and particularly around the concerns around public safety and officer safety. And so for me, that's why the piece in the paper was so impassioned. I'm a former officer myself. I've dealt with knife crime, axe-wielding people, gun-wielding people. I've been shot at. So, you know, as an unarmed officer, I've been there, I've felt those emotions, and I've seen and dealt with those issues. And so, for me, this is just such an important topic for us to cover, not least with, obviously, the sort of very porous, let's call it that, border, and the influx of people from the continent who, as we see in France and Germany, Austria and elsewhere, we do see these horrendous knife attacks, often aimed at police officers. And so I think we're on borrowed time. I think we're playing Russian roulette every time we avoid this conversation. And of course, when we do have police officers sort of horrifically murdered, as we've seen, even just literally outside Parliament, we've seen that. You know, even in those cases, the problem with this debate is that everyone immediately, or not everyone, but a lot of people turn around and say, well, now's not the time. So, of course, when is the time? And so for the Public Safety Foundation's perspective, well, now's the time. Let's have this discussion. Let's have this conversation at a time where we're not sort of caught in a process of understandable grief and where others are trying to prevent a knee-jerk. Let's have a proper, honest conversation. And just a final point, I suppose, would be that we wrote to the Home Secretary in the summer, back when it was Yvette Cooper, we wrote to her asking for an independent review of the model of unarmed policing. And the response we eventually got from the Home Office said that they're wedded to the model of unarmed policing because it gives character to policing. That's their sort of words, which, you know, try telling that to the families of officers who've been seriously injured or indeed killed.
Roy, I feel myself drawn more and more to your argument, but my worry is we saw what happened with the police officer who shot and killed Chris Cabba, who was a well-known, infamous gangster, effectively. That police officer was tried for murder in court. He was named. His family had to go into protection. They've had to move house completely. The jury, of course, cleared him within, I think, something like an hour and a half. But it will be a deterrent for police officers, I think, to pull the gun if they think they're then going to be dragged through the courts by our crazy legal system.
I mean, look, you're quite right to highlight this issue, and we're not naive to it either. The accountability regime is pretty much broken. You know, it takes far too long. It drags people repeatedly over the coals. Look, and nobody's arguing for no accountability or less accountability in a sense. It's just that the system itself isn't delivering the results. As for kind of what we might expect to see if frontline police officers were routinely armed, I think at the end of the day, police officers carry a baton, some Parva or CS kind of pepper spray on their belts and handcuffs every day. They're not going round wantonly battering people. And so the idea that by arming officers we'd see some sort of significant, substantial increase in police shootings, I think is mistaken. If we look at Northern Ireland, where obviously police officers are routinely armed, the latest stats show we've had 2 years of officers not discharging their firearms once over 2 years in Northern Ireland, which by any sort of measure one would recognise as a challenging policing environment. They pulled their firearms, you know, 400 or 500 times each of those years, but no firearms discharges. And so I think, you know, we need to, we're often, I think, fed a diet of ideas built around the sort of the United States, where there's this sense that police are shooting regularly, and of course it is a different environment and there are more guns on the streets. But I think we're in this debate, I think our most important comparators would be the likes of Northern Ireland, the likes of continental Europe. Our friends in Australia, New Zealand, Canada would be, for me, the better comparator.
And Rory, can you think of any other examples of countries that have relatively recently introduced or increased the number of guns being used? Because obviously this is a very difficult thing to compare on an international scale because of the cultural differences as well as the differences in gun laws.
Right. I suppose, that, again, looking to Europe, where obviously we had that horrendous year where we saw the Bataclan and the various other attacks that saw an already routinely armed police service, even they recognised that they weren't actually themselves trained up and kitted up enough. And so we've seen in the likes of Germany, police forces there now not just ensuring that the officers have their pistols to hand, but that within their vehicles they actually have sort of semi-automatic rifles, essentially, so that they can engage hostile actors at a safer distance and more effectively neutralise them. So for me, again, like Germany, we've not seen some mad surge in police officers sort of, you know, it's not turned into the Wild West. It's just a reality of the threats that we're facing. And it's sad, you know, I joined the police and I was quite happy to do so on an unarmed basis. I never had a taser and I never had a gun. You know, unfortunately, the reality I saw, even in the 3 years in Lambeth, never mind subsequently, but the 3 years I served in Lambeth as a neighbourhood officer, you know, I had girl guides, I had primary school children expressing shock and horror when they said to me, "Where's your gun?" And I would explain to them that in Britain we're unarmed. They would be aghast. They'd reference experiences they'd had and seen in their neighbourhood and express, yeah, as I say, shock that their police officers weren't routinely armed. So, look, nobody's going into this debate, I think, with a very gung-ho attitude. I recognise that in pursuing this, we need a review, we need an honest conversation. And like so many issues facing Britain, we seem unable to have that honest conversation. You know, we're able to have it here on GB News, but in a lot of environments, we're not able to have that conversation. There's a real reluctance from those in authority and the elites to have it. And, you know, as I say, we're just trying to raise the issue. We think the front line, you know, they're often treated as the bottom of the pile and they deserve better.
All right, Rory, thank you for that. We have to move on. That's Rory Gagan, who is calling for that report for the police department. What do you think about that? We'd love to know your views.
Well, coming up, we're going to be looking at some of those tributes that are pouring in for Ricky Hatton, who sadly died, aged just 46. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, well, there's plenty of sunshine across Europe. There are a few showers around, but otherwise it's feeling very warm out there, a bit breezy across parts of Madeira and the Canary Islands, but across much of Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, lengthy sunny skies, and across Greece as well, not doing too bad. There are just a few showers towards the north of that, but otherwise a lot of sunshine on offer, temperatures up to 34 degrees.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 8 minutes to 11, and you've been getting in touch with us on gbnews.com/yoursay. Really split views on arming the police.
I'm sure. It's a very emotive subject, isn't it?
It really is. And it would be a real break from the past as well. And Tom says, Rory, that was our guest, was spot on. We need to have that conversation on ASAP. Well, we'll be having that conversation on GB News.
Now, the legendary British boxer Ricky Hatton has died at the age of 46. He was found at his home in Manchester. His family released a statement saying he inspired generations. He won world titles at light heavyweight and welterweight, winning 45 of his 48 fights.
Well, we're now joined by editor and founder of British Boxing News, Tim Rickson. Tim, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Tell us what Ricky meant to the world of boxing.
I think for especially British fight fans, I think the world over, he was a hero and an inspiration to everyone because he came from a working class background, and I think his debut fight was in a leisure centre, and then he went to Las Vegas, Madison Square Garden. So he achieved everything there was possible to achieve.
He's died far too young. After boxing, of course, he tried promotions and managing, and that didn't work out quite so well for him.
No, I mean he trained a few fighters, and I think he had English champions. So he was always in the gym, and he's always passing on his knowledge and his skills to the next generation of boxers. I believe he trained his nephew, Jack Hatton, who's an amateur boxer at the moment. So he was successful as a trainer.
Tim, I'm so sorry we are out of time. We're going to have to go to the weather and then that Reform live conference. Don't miss it.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to a GB News weather update from the Met Office. We hold on to strong winds today. There is a Met Office wind warning in force across England and Wales. Heavy showers with the best of any sunshine across the south. So like I said, there is a wind warning in force. Gusts of up to 60 to 70 miles per hour is possible. We'll hold on to frequent showers across Northern Ireland, Northern England, into Wales as well, merging to give longer spells of rain. Likewise for parts of Scotland, but it's the south of England that holds on to some sunny spells, but blustery showers rattling their way through. Highs here of 18 to 19 degrees, but feeling rather cool in any heavy downpours and with the strong winds. So through Monday evening, there'll be some late evening sunny spells across the northern half of Scotland, but still holding on to some showers here. Likewise, it's a similar story elsewhere. Showers, especially across Northern Ireland and northern parts of England. Some of these could be heavy with the odd rumble of thunder as well. And we still hold on to those strong winds, gusts of 45 to 55 miles per hour, but they'll generally start easing as we go through Monday night as the area of low pressure tracks its way eastwards. The focus for the showers overnight into Tuesday then across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and sinking their way southwards. Either side of that holding on to clear skies, but otherwise temperatures generally ranging from 9 to 13 degrees to start Tuesday. So Tuesday promises a brighter start for many of us, especially across Scotland and southern parts of England. We still hold on to a few showers, especially across northern parts of England, perhaps even a few bubbling up across parts of Wales, but otherwise lighter winds, a bit more of a calmer day out there before sunshine turns hazy from the west. Highs up to 18 or 19 degrees. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
It is 11 o'clock on Monday, the 15th of September, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, at any moment now, the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage is set to make a major announcement about his party. Don't miss it.
And the first return flights to France for migrants under that one in, one out deal who illegally cross the channel are expected to take off this week. But will it be au revoir?
And sticking with the Prime Minister, he says the UK will not surrender its flags to those who use it as a symbol of fear and division after more than 150,000 people gathered in London to champion British culture at Tommy Robinson's Freedom of Speech rally this weekend.
Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.
Familiar tones of Winston Churchill as the UK marks the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Britain today, as a disturbing new poll reveals 2 in 3 people under the age of 40 haven't a clue about it.
Well, as 85 years ago, thousands of young men and actually boys took to the skies to defend Britain, the war started to turn in our favour. We're at the Spitfire Visitor Centre in Blackpool, finding all about the Battle of Britain.
And the family of Ricky Hatton say he inspired generations as the British boxer dies aged 46. Tributes continue to pour in from around the world. Well, we'd love to know what you think. Send your views and comments to gbnews.com/yoursay.
Don't forget, of course, it's Nigel Farage's press conference. We will be covering it live. That's coming up very shortly. But first, here's the headlines with Katie Bowen.
Miriam, Andrew, thank you and good morning. The headlines at 2 minutes past 11. The Prime Minister is facing further pressure from Labour MPs after he was forced to sack the US ambassador last week. Sir Keir Starmer is reportedly pinning his hopes on President Trump's state visit to regain the initiative and stave off a backbench revolt. Reports over the weekend suggest that the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, is set to launch a leadership bid to oust Sir Keir Starmer as Labour leader. The pressure comes as the Prime Minister sacked former American Ambassador Lord Mandelson over his relationship with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Alex Burghardt, spoke to GB News earlier.
Last week, we were calling on the government to just come clean about what had happened with the whole Mandelson affair so that it didn't overshadow this visit, this very important visit, by the President of the United States. They haven't done that. It's dragged on into this week, and we're going to be trying again today to get the government to publish all of the Mandelson Epstein files so that everybody can see what the Prime Minister knew, when he knew it, and how this appointment came to be made in the first place.
Elsewhere today, GB News sources have confirmed that deportation flights for Channel migrants entering the UK illegally will leave this week. Sources will not, however, confirm reports that the first flight will leave today. Under Sir Keir Starmer's partial returns deal with France, asylum seekers who arrived in the UK last month have been issued with formal removal directions, telling them they'll be deported back to France within 5 days. Those returns are now reportedly imminent. There are reports also that asylum seekers will be escorted by Home Office security staff on commercial Air France flights rather than a chartered aircraft. The UK and the US have agreed a deal to boost the building of nuclear plants in both countries. That deal is set to be signed during the state visit. Downing Street said this week we'll see a, quote, step change in the so-called special relationship between the two nations, as the leaders are also expected to sign a tech partnership. The Atlantic Partnership for Advanced Nuclear Energy is expected to enable deals between companies in the UK and the US. It aims to make it quicker for businesses to build nuclear power stations by cutting red tape around projects. The prime suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann has refused to speak to British police. The Metropolitan Police sent a so-called international letter of request to 49-year-old Christian Bruckner, who is due to be released from prison in Germany this week. The German national has never been charged in the McCann case and denies all involvement. Let's cross over now to Reform UK, where the leader of the party, Nigel Farage, has a major announcement to make. Let's go there now live.
Because some surveys say that crime is falling. Well, that's certainly not how most people in the country feel. And certainly our advocacy of zero tolerance, particularly for areas like shoplifting, really caught the mood of the country. And plus our insistence on stop and search, which interestingly is popular across all sections of society, regardless whether you're on the left, the centre or the right of politics. Sadly, at the same time, free speech has been genuinely under attack, and I think the final implementation of what was well-intentioned legislation, frankly, is quite chilling. And that allows the public now to believe that we're living in a world of two-tier policing and sentencing. And indeed, if you just look at it, you know, if you're a childminder who says something deeply intolerant and wrong, but only once, ever, it's a long prison sentence. And even if you're a foreign national arriving at Heathrow Airport, well, if you've said something the authorities don't like, you may well be arrested by 5 armed officers. And if you don't think it's two-tier, well, have a think about this. On Friday, there were some very explicit threats posted on TikTok for me to be killed. Pretty sick in the light of what happened to Charlie Kirk, but quite explicit. Been told this morning by the Metropolitan Police that those posts don't meet the threshold for further action. So I think we are, you know, without doubt, living in a two-tier country. It is extraordinary. The rest of the summer was dominated for us by the weekly by-elections that happen every Thursday, and those that study these things will see we're winning more and more seats. and doing particularly well against the Labour Party in some parts of the country where they've been strong ever since the end of the First World War. And of course, this all culminated in our conference in Birmingham 2 weeks ago, which was upbeat, optimistic, full of energy, and the party is in good shape. But I did say, there were two things I said in particular at the conference. The first was that I thought this government and the British economy were in far deeper trouble than most people realised, and that I did not believe the government would last a full 4 years, thinking myself that a general election by 2027 was entirely possible. It seems to me, given events of the last week, it could happen even more quickly than that, I don't know. But I also admitted that our big weakness, and the question that we struggle to answer, is how can a team of people who've never been in government think about going into government? How can a team of people who, if we get elected on a genuinely radical agenda for change, how are we going to deal with some of the barriers that we might face? They might come from elements of the civil service. They might come from the House of Lords. They might come from the teaching unions. How is a team of inexperienced people going to be prepared to go into government? Well, some of you may think even talking about winning the next election, about government, is pie in the sky. But frankly, having led the opinion polls for over 100 opinion polls, the only responsible thing that we can do is to prepare. And that's why I announced at conference we'd be setting up a department preparing for government. And that is the responsible thing that we're going to do. And that process starts today when we take on somebody who will head up that department, find talent, find people with experience in the civil service, in government, and help us get ready for what will be a monumental task. Radical change in a country like this is not easy, but it's necessary, because if it's not done, many of us believe this country will be well and truly sunk. So the man that has been given the job, this enormous responsibility, is a Member of Parliament for East Wiltshire. His name is Danny Kruger, and he joins me, I hope he does, on the stage now. Good man.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, Nigel. Good to see you all. I have been variously a member, an activist, an employee of the Conservative Party for over 20 years. And I have many friends in the party, many good and decent people, which is why it is so personally painful for me to be doing what I'm doing today. There have been moments when I've been very proud to belong to the Tory party. In 2010, I was inspired by the big society, by schools reform and welfare reform. I was thrilled by Brexit and by what Boris Johnson pulled off in 2019. But those were exceptions to the rule. The rule of our time in office was failure. Bigger government, social decline, low wages, high taxes, and less of what ordinary people actually wanted. And now our country is entering the most profound set of crises in my lifetime, under a government even worse, far worse, than the one it replaced. Crisis in the economy, crisis at the border, crisis in our streets, crisis in our military, crisis for young people. Yes, we are still a great country, and there are good reasons that so many migrants want to come here. But there are also reasons so many entrepreneurs and young people want to leave. Britain is not broken, but it is badly damaged. And so in this crisis, something's got to give. I hoped after our defeat last year that the Conservative Party would learn the obvious lesson, that the old ways don't work, that centrism is not enough, that real change is needed. But no. We've had a year of stasis and drift and the sham unity that comes from not doing anything bold or difficult or controversial. And the result is in the polls. And those lost voters aren't coming back. And every day, more and more people are joining them in deserting the party that has failed. And so this is my tragic conclusion. The Conservative Party is over. Over as a national party. Over as the principal opposition to the left. But I'm not despondent, because conservatism is not over. It's never been needed more, and actually it's never been more vibrant. Because the failure of the Conservative Party has created space for an alternative. The flame is passing from one torch to another. The old torch, once so great, is guttering, spluttering, held weakly in uncertain hands. But the new torch is already alight, already brighter than the one it is replacing, held aloft in firm and confident hands. And while the torch is different, the flame is the same. The things we Conservatives all believe in: respect for the law, respect for our traditions, personal liberty, national sovereignty, free markets, belief in family, community, country. The trinity of obligations that give us identity and security and purpose. And if we strengthen these things, and the economy which supports them, and the armed forces which defend them, we can weather the storms that are coming, and we can make our country even greater. So I am honoured to have been asked by Nigel to work with him, with Zia Youssef, with Richard Tice and our other colleagues to help reform prepare for government. This is a team with the vision, the energy and the ideas that we need. And so let me say a word about the work that we're going to do. It's going to be difficult because we are planning change on a scale that the system has not seen since the modern civil service was created in the 19th century. And this work is going to be hard, and it will be opposed by the system. And that's why we need to be radical, taking on the vested interests and the incumbents who always defend the status quo. But here's an important thing. Reform UK is a radical force, but not a revolutionary one. Our mission is not just to overthrow the current system. It is to restore the system that we need: limited government, accountable power, a strong society, a state that works in the interests of the people. Radical restoration. That is the reform the country needs. Now, we'll be making a lot of announcements in the months ahead about what we want to do in government and how we'll get there, because this is going to be an open process. The whole point is that no group of politicians has all the answers. And so what I want to say to people watching is this. If you are serious about saving our country, about changing our economy and our society and our government itself, if you have expertise or experience or ideas, and that's everyone, we want your help. If you work in Whitehall or the public sector or the military and you want to give us confidential advice, get in touch. I say this to everyone. If you've had enough of waiting for politicians to fix our problems, if you don't trust Westminster, well, join the club. Literally, join us. Join Reform UK and see what you can do for your country. So let me finish with this. We on the right of politics face a choice: to embrace the change that is happening or to go down to a deserved demise. To follow the flame of conservatism as it passes to a new torch, or to stand still and get darker and colder and more pointless. To be conservative is not to worship the ashes of defunct institutions. It is to preserve the fire that gives our country its life. The new custodian of that fire, the best hope we have, maybe our last hope, and I fervently hope the next Prime Minister, is Nigel Farage. I am proud to follow him, and I hope others will do the same, because Britain needs reform. Thank you.
OK, thank you very much indeed, Danny. We have a list of questions, as is our tradition, and we're going to begin with Chris Mason from the BBC.
Thank you both. Chris Mason from BBC News. Nigel Farage, are you really in an insurgency? Oh, start again now, I'm in possession of a microphone. Are you really an insurgency or any port in a storm for grumpy Conservatives who think their old party is finished? And Danny Kruger, is the Conservative Party really over? What would you say to former colleagues who will say that you're a turncoat who's given up when the going gets tough? And I appreciate defecting is a big and difficult thing for any politician to do. And just one final question, Mr Farage, if I may. Where did the money come from for the house your partner bought in Clacton?
OK, 2 questions there. I'll deal with that after Danny and I have given the answers to this. We're not here as any port in a storm for Conservatives who think they've got a better chance of winning their seat next time round. There are 2 things. There are 2 criteria. Number 1 is what do these individuals stand for, but more importantly, what are they going to give? What is the benefit to us of them joining? And they're the only ones I have any interest in. In this particular case, Danny Kruger is aligned with us, whether it's on the Brexit vote, whether it's on the Windsor framework, whether it's on ECHR. You know, politically, we're very, very aligned indeed. And he's just taken on a mammoth piece of work, and he's better qualified to do it than any of the rest of us that are in the senior levels of leadership in this party at the moment.
Thank you. Also, Chris, this is a big risk for me. And, in fact, my seat is not particularly a Reform target, although Reform are doing well, even in East Wiltshire at the moment. So I don't accept that I'm simply jumping ship to save my skin. In fact, I'm taking a very significant personal risk here. The fact is that I feel nothing changes when the governments change at the moment, and I think that's where the country are too. And what I hoped after the last election is that my party, the Conservatives, would recognise how profound the challenge that they faced is. They haven't done so. And my view now is that the best hope for Conservatism and for the country is Nigel's Reform Party. But yes, it is going to be a major challenge, and Nigel's asked me to do a very, very difficult job. So I don't think I'm scuttling off an easy life with this move.
No, that's certainly true. Chris, in answer to your question, my partner is a private individual. She purchased a house in the constituency. I was pleased that she did. I didn't particularly want my name down, living in the constituency for obvious security reasons. Lots of questions were asked, which is why I went last week to an independent KC, tax expert. I've got all the judgment. The KYC checks were done. The money was legal. The purchase was legitimate. The right level of stamp duty was paid. There have been no laws of any kind broken whatsoever. As for the source of the money, I've said previously what I've said, and I'm not going to say any more. Thank you. Chris Hope, GB News.
Thank you. Chris Hope from GB News. Danny Kruger, you're the new Reform UK MP. What has Nigel Farage got that Kemi Badenoch hasn't got as a leader, apart from a big poll lead?
Don't answer that.
Why would he be a better PM than Mrs Badenoch? And who approached Nigel Farage? Did you approach him or he approached you?
Danny Kruger approached me initially. Well, you know, you meet in the House of Commons, you meet in the voting lobbies, things like that. So to say, where did the direct approach come from, I'm not even sure, to be frank with you, but this is a conversation that has happened between Danny and I, and it's been going on over the course of the summer.
Yeah. Probably started when Lee Anderson defected however many years ago, actually. That's when the conversation began, but I never thought it was... I didn't think it was the right thing to do until now. And, Chris, I think I don't want to make a comparison between Nigel and Kemi. I have great personal regard for her, actually. I think she's done a very, very difficult job with courage and resilience, and I like her personally. I think the problem is the Conservative Party. So any leader that the Conservatives have, I think, would struggle with 2 essential problems. One is a divided parliamentary party, and indeed party in the country. And secondly, a toxic brand. And it's not just a brand problem, it's a real problem. The fact is the country doesn't trust Conservatives because of their record in office over the last 14 years, and particularly the last few years, when, by the way, I was opposing what the Conservative government was doing on migration in particular. So I think that, unfortunately, whatever leader we have, the Conservative Party is finished as the principal opposition to the left. But the good news is we do have a great alternative in Reform Party, my new colleagues and in its leader, who I think does have the character and the track record of persistent commitment to the cause and to the interests of the British people that they will be looking for. So I'm very, very pleased to be jumping onto the Nigel Farage machine, but I wish my former colleagues very, very well. I have nothing but personal regard for all of them.
Thank you. Let's go to Liz Bates from Sky News.
Thanks. I was going to say, it sounds like you think the Conservative Party is dead and finished for good, and is that true? But I think we know that already. In terms of your other colleagues, you still have high regard for a lot of them. Do you expect any more of them to come over? Are there more conversations going on? And Mr Farage, if I could get your response to the scenes that we saw over the weekend, the marches, the presence of Tommy Robinson, and in particular, the comments of Elon Musk, fight or die. What do you make of all of that?
So on the first question, I don't think the Conservative Party is dead. I just think it's over as the principal opposition and the principal vehicle of conservatism, the sort of conservatism that I believe in. And I think in reality, it is very unlikely that they're going to recover significantly or soon. And my personal view is ever. So I'm not predicting that there will never be Conservative Party or Conservative MPs. I would hope that colleagues who share my view about the crisis that the country is in and the opportunity that reform offers to save our country at the next election will follow me. In terms of what conversations are underway, I have absolutely no idea, and that's best left to the leader. Nigel, are there other conversations underway?
Thank you. It's very kind of you. But, of course, we keep everything under wraps. I mean, you know, when we have negotiations with people, nothing leaks. None of you had a clue that Danny would be joining us today, and that's how we operate, and that's very much how I operate. A quick thought on the Conservative Party. Whether it is the parrot in the Monty Python sketch, I don't know. What I do know is this Conservative Party has zero chance of winning the next general election. Literally zero chance, but reform genuinely does. And we've led, as I said earlier, for over 100 opinion polls. As for Saturday, I think the vast majority of people that turned up were good, ordinary, decent people who are very, very concerned about what's happening in this country. I've noticed that the wave of flags that started about 3 weeks ago, going up around the country, far from subsiding, from what I could see this weekend, it's accelerating massively. And it is a collective, two fingers up to a British establishment that they feel utterly betrayed by in every single way. So I fully understand why people would go and march. The comments of Elon Musk you asked me about. Well, Elon and I have a relationship. Wouldn't say a very good one. He's generally rather rude about me, even though I do admire him in many ways. You know, it would be nice to get some clarification of what fight meant in that context. And I'll link it back to something that Danny said earlier. We are radical, but we're not revolutionaries. If the fight that Musk was talking about was about standing up for our rights of free speech, if it was about fighting in elections to overcome the established parties, then that absolutely is the fight that we're in. And the reason you asked the question, I think the context of the way the word was used left a degree of ambiguity. Thank you. Carl Dinnan, ITV News.
Thanks very much. Danny has just described reform as being the new home of conservatism. How then are you going to continue to persuade former Labour voters to vote for you, if that is the case? Danny, I'd like to ask you about something you said in your speech. You said, quite explicitly, Britain is not broken. Are you aware that Nigel has spent the whole summer saying that it is? And finally, Nigel, just a quick one. Do you think Peter Mandelson was worth the risk as US ambassador to the United States?
Oh, gosh. We'll be here all day, Carl, just with you, won't we? Look, you can define conservatism how you want. What is for certain, if you look at those by-election results last Thursday, we are doing very well in the old Labour heartlands because they believe in family, community, country, all right? And what people like Danny have been looking for is a brand of conservatism that's consistently been promised and not delivered. And that's the really important point. As to whether Britain is broken or not, Danny's more bullish than me. He's more optimistic than me. But we both agree on one thing. The state the country's in needs radical change. Tinkering at the edges will not make any difference. And as for Mandy, well, you know, clever bloke, good at what he does. I confronted him face-to-face when he was European Commissioner. There was no doubt the man was a master of a brief, but a totally catastrophic appointment from day one. A huge political error from Keir Starmer, from Morgan McSweeney, and it looks like one or both of them will fall as a result of that judgment. We will find out more over the course of the coming days, but a catastrophic political error. Francis Reid, Channel 4 News.
Thank you very much. Mr Kruger, you've previously called reform a destructive force, so I'm wondering what's changed. And secondly, forgive me, you're another Eton boy, Oxbridge graduate. Can you explain to working class voters how you can understand their lives and why it's any different from the Tories? Mr Farage, you've distanced yourself from Tommy Robinson, but Elon Musk is amplifying him. Will you outright condemn their actions today? And also, what legal means do you think Elon Musk could possibly have in mind in saying that a democratically elected government should be overthrown?
So, reform is a destructive force. It's destructive of the established parties, and I mean that's
a very good pivot. I like that.
I mean, you like it. I have regretted it, and I do, on a personal level, genuinely regret it, because there are some brilliant candidates in my constituency who lost their seats at the council elections to reform at the council elections earlier this year, and you know the fact is, the landscape is changing dramatically. The brutal reality of a first-past-the-post system, though, is that there's only really space for one major party on the right of politics if we are serious about trying to win power on the right, as we should be. And therefore, as I said, I think the flame has passed to a different torch. So what I don't believe, though, is reform is destructive of our country. In fact, quite the reverse. As we've heard, we want to restore the foundations of our country, address the parts of our communities that genuinely are broken, restore families, communities and our country itself. So it's a creative as well as a destructive force, and I'm very proud to be working with it. On your cheap shot about my education, fair enough. None of us can claim to have personal experience of every experience that people in the country have. I recognise that. Nevertheless, I would say, partly as a constituency MP, but actually more in the work that I've done outside politics. For 10 years, I ran a charity which I still chair, working in prisons and with ex-prisoners. We work with many families at risk. I'm very, very familiar on a personal level with the challenges that so many people in our country face who have lives very different from mine. And I would hope, and the experience shows, in fact, as happened in 2019, when I was so proud with Boris Johnson's achievement to win genuinely a national vote from people from all different sections of society. The good news is the British people do not have quite the same hang-ups as others about where somebody went to school.
Yeah, we're not bothered about... There's no class prejudice in reform. There's no racial prejudice in reform. We don't really care what your sexual preference is or anything else. We couldn't care less about any of it. We're not going to segment people up, but if you're here, you're British, you support the values of this country, you obey the law, you pay your taxes, you're very welcome in our party. And I think one of the things that really shocked people was, without trying to do it, was how diverse our conference was. You know, a real cross-section of society. As far as Mr Musk's concerned, look, you know, he's been chucking abuse at me now for 6 months, and you want me to return the favour, don't you? Because it's a great headline. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to abuse Musk or Tommy Robinson or anything. We're going to get on with building what we're trying to build. Thank you very much indeed. Noah Hoffman from The Sun. It's a lot of questions.
Thank you. This is one to you both. Danny was political secretary to Boris Johnson, someone you, Nigel, blame for waves of mass migration. I was just wondering how you both square that circle, please.
Well, I think when the mass migration occurred, Boris was Prime Minister. Danny knows him incredibly well. But I think one of the reasons Danny is here, he's been disappointed by what's been promised at elections and not delivered. I don't hold Danny personally responsible for that mass wave of migration, and quite the opposite. Just look at his voting record.
Thank you. So I was political secretary to Boris in 2019, in those months before the 2019 election, which was when I became an MP. So I was there through the Brexit battles when we were in a minority government and had to try and get Brexit through very, very difficult circumstances. And I remain enormously proud of Boris Johnson for his achievement then. I think he was absolutely the man for the moment. And with help from Nigel and others, he won a great victory at that election, and all credit to him. I was very disappointed with what followed. Firstly, with the failure to properly grip the system of Whitehall itself, which Brexit was only a prelude to. We needed to restore the government to the people. That was what people voted for in 2019, and I think we failed to do that, particularly during COVID. And then secondly, most obviously, with the wave of immigration that the government oversaw. And while, as a Conservative MP, in a sense, I bear some responsibility for that, in practice, I was arguing strongly against the degree of both legal and illegal migration that the government was presiding over. And I'm on record for having opposed measures that the government was introducing, particularly around the small boat crossings. And I rebelled on the Rwanda deal because I didn't feel it extricated the British government from the snare of the human rights framework that would have prevented Rwanda from working as well as it could have done. It didn't work at all, of course, because Labour scrapped it. But so I think I was on the right side of those arguments in the last Parliament.
OK, Martin Beckford, Daily Mail.
Thank you. Good morning. Could I ask, Danny, one of the things you've been best known for over the past year is opposing the assisted suicide bill. Will your preparations for reform government include repealing that law, his law by then? And Nigel, would you support him in that? Thank you.
So my quick answer to that is we'll wait and see. The manifesto is still to be written. Zia Youssef is leading on policy development. It's a free vote in the House of Commons, questions around assisted dying. And I think that's probably the right framework for it. Nevertheless, and I defer to Nigel here, I think it is appropriate for the parties to take the way laws are framed seriously. And I have very significant concerns with the way the assisted dying law has been framed, actually with the support of the Labour government. So it might well be appropriate that the party takes a position, but the reality is our MPs are split on this question, like the country is. Yeah. So I don't think that it's likely that we're going to be imposing a position on principle on assisted dying on our colleagues.
Not unless it's become legislation and we can see it's going horrendously wrong. But you know, we haven't even got through the House of Lords stage with this yet, and there are many who support the principle who now have grave reservations. Unlikely to be a major party political issue, I would have thought, at the next general election, but an issue of conscience, certainly. Jonathan Walker, Daily Express.
Hello. Danny, what sort of problems do you expect Reform to face if they do form a government? Do you think the civil service are ready for a Reform government? Will they work with Nigel and his team? And Nigel, can I just ask you, are you... These TikTok messages, are they just an annoyance or are they a genuine concern to you?
So on the civil service, thank you. I think we're going to encounter serious opposition. And part of the purpose of today and the work that we're going to be doing quite publicly in the months and years to come is to be signalling very clearly to the system what is coming. And we want to do that in a civil, constructive way. We don't want to pick fights where we don't need to, but it is essential that the Whitehall machine understands that if we win, there will be change. And what that will look like, we'll be talking about more in the period ahead. But I think there will be opposition. But I am determined that we do this in a way that is constructive. And there will be many civil servants who will actually, I hope, I'm confident, and my experience of the civil service is this, there are many people, often quite quiet people, often not at the very most senior ranks, who recognise how broken the system is and who will want to help us. So I think it's very, very important that we signal to those people. We're not out to get everybody. And we want to work constructively with those parts of the machine that recognise that a system designed in the 19th century is no longer remotely fit for purpose. We need a much leaner, much more efficient, much more open central apparatus that is properly accountable to elected politicians. And so when people vote for a change in government, they actually get a change in government, not just a change of ministers.
Quite. Look, I knew Charlie Kirk for virtually 10 years, knew him pretty well, campaigned around America with him, spoke at Turning Point conferences. You know, I knew the guy very, very well, and obviously deeply upset by what happened. Some of the reaction to it was vile. Vile. But if you believe in free speech, you have to allow people to say distasteful things. But equally, if you believe in free speech, you believe there are limits to free speech, An incitement to kill, I would have thought, I know, is way beyond what even a free speech champion such as myself thinks is acceptable. And yes, these were aimed at me personally. I mean, look, it's not a very pleasant experience, let's put it like that. And so I did challenge the police to do something, but they've decided this does not meet the threshold. Gosh, imagine if I'd made some joke about the trans community. I'd probably be in real trouble. And that is at the heart of two-tier Britain, two-tier policing, two-tier justice, and two-tier care. And it's one of the reasons the flags are going up all over this country. The public have sussed it. The government is not on the side of ordinary, decent, working people. Thank you. We move on to Tony Diver from The Telegraph.
Thank you. Danny, can I ask you, until this morning you were a Tory frontbencher, you were in charge of representing your party in Parliament. When did you tell Kemi Badenoch that you intended to defect, or did you leave her to find out on television this morning? And can I also ask, you previously said that Robert Jenrick was the man who could win voters back from reform. Do you no longer think that he can? And if you don't mind briefly, just to Nigel, Danny's twice here asked civil servants and military officials to give advice to reform. Are you asking people to break their oaths of confidentiality to the government and leak you information about what's going on inside government and the military? Or perhaps do you already have people doing that?
So on the first question, I informed the Chief Whip this morning before coming out here today, and in the proper way. But no, I didn't want to put any of my colleagues in a difficult position of asking them to keep any sort of secret for me before we did this. And so that's that. On the what was the second part of your question? Robert Jenrick. Well, I have a great personal respect and regard for Rob, and obviously supported his leadership campaign last year. I wish that he had won because I think he would have done things differently. I think he would have taken the fight to Labour immediately rather than Kemi's strategy, which is a respectable one, by the way. It's understandable why she chose to do it, which was to, as it were, disappear from public view for a year or two while the Conservative Party sorted out what it thought. But that hasn't worked. And so I think Rob's strategy would have been to be much more energetic and deliberate and making some clear policy positions at the outset about the ECHR, which I think is, in a sense, the totemic one that shows seriousness about the changes we need. There would have been a major battle in the Conservative Party to do that, and it might have been that he wouldn't have been able to do so. This is my problem about the divided party. So in answer to your question, do I think that Rob could succeed? I don't think he could succeed in overtaking reform now. Who knows what would have happened if he'd won last year? But I think now it is too late. And so I wish all my former colleagues well on a personal level. But as I say, I think the Conservative Party is unable to deliver for Conservatives.
Since I made that announcement at conference on the 5th and 6th of September to say we're going to be setting this department up, I've had a lot of people contact me, mostly those from the military or the civil service that have quite recently left, and one or two in very senior positions, who've no desire to go public but genuinely want to help because they see what the problems are. We're not encouraging people to break their oaths or break the law or be whistleblowers, but my impression is there are many working within the system who are frankly in despair. So if people come forward with valuable information that helps us to craft a policy, we will certainly accept it.
Yeah, and let me emphasise, we're seriously not encouraging people to break oaths or to, as it were, sort of betray the government they work for. On the contrary, they should do their job as well as they can. But we do want advice on how to fix the system itself. So it's not about policy, and certainly not about any kind of official secrets about what the government's doing, what ministers are doing. It's about what is your advice to us on how we should structure Whitehall and how we should arrange the apparatus of government in the most effective way. And that's something that only people who have either working currently or have worked in it can do.
Exactly. And that's our weakness, and you're coming here to help us fill that. Max Kendick from The Times.
Thank you. Nigel Farage, this is the first sitting MP defection since the election. You had five MPs just after the election. You're back on 5 now. How many MPs will you have by the end of the Parliament?
What a good question.
And Danny Kruger, you were a big supporter of Boris Johnson. Are you still a big ally of Boris? Should he make a return and should he come to reform?
I've no idea what by-elections will come up over the course of this Parliament. Undoubtedly, there's only been one so far, which is quite surprising, which is Runcorn, of course. So, I mean, you know, we will look forward to future parliamentary by-elections. We will do our absolute best to win them. Whether we'll be up against Mr. Burnham in one of them, I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what the future brings. And I think there will be more colleagues who have sat with Danny that join us. Are we in conversation with some of them? Yes. But as I say, we've got a couple of bars here that have to be cleared. Number one, we have to see that they genuinely, in policy terms, are with us. And secondly, that they're coming not for a meal ticket, but to add to our movement, to add to our party and what we are trying to do.
Yes, I mean, I hope others will join, and I hope everyone will stay. Lee Anderson just said to me when he saw that it was me, he said, "So which one of us is leaving? Because it's one in, one out." So I hope that is not. I hope that trend has stopped, Lee, with this. We need to grow. On Boris, I mean, I genuinely have great personal regard and respect for what he achieved as the cheerleader for Brexit in 2016, and as I think the only man who actually had the courage and the style and the conviction to kick the door down, as he did in 2019, to get the deal and get Parliament to back an election and then to go on to win such an astounding victory in 2019. So I will always revere Boris for his achievement in that period. I'm afraid to say I think subsequently as Prime Minister he failed, and he's part of the failure of the Conservative record in the last Parliament. And I think he has many decent excuses, COVID being the most obvious one, but fundamentally you have to be accountable for your record in this business. And so my view is that he's probably not one of the people on Nigel's invitation list for reform.
Yeah. A drink, perhaps, but not to join Reform. James Hill, Spectator.
Thank you very much. Danny, you were integral to Robert Jenrick's leadership campaign last summer. Just off the back of Tony's question, can you categorically rule out ever rejoining the Conservative Party if Robert Jenrick does become leader in the future?
Oh, I mean, blimey, I've just made one move. Don't ask me to anticipate the next one. I mean, my strong prediction is that the Conservative Party is going to continue to shrink in public opinion and in parliamentary size. And I want to be part of the party that can actually achieve change for this country. So, I mean, my absolute commitment now is to Nigel and to reform. I'm not going to speculate on what might happen in the Conservative Party. It's no longer my business. And, and I can't imagine what might happen down the line.
The Conservative Party, James, is nowhere near its electoral floor. There are still people out there who don't really engage in politics much, who have companies and jobs and families and kids and mortgages, and they think, well, I'll tell the pollster I'm voting Conservative because I don't like what Labour's doing. But when they realise that actually it's only reform that can beat Labour, then you'll see whatever they're polling at now, is it 16, 17 or something like that, that will go lower. And the other point, I think, is this, that the stakes next May are very, very high, with the Welsh, Scottish, Greater London, thousands of council seats. My prediction is that after next May, the Conservative Party will cease to be a national party because they're going to get obliterated in Scotland and best part obliterated in Wales. Moving on to Chris McKeon, PA.
Thanks. Mr Kruger, you said that the public no longer trust the Conservatives after 14 years of failure, but we've seen a succession of former Conservative ministers join Reform UK, so why should they trust Reform UK? And Mr Farage, you described some of the majority of the people marching on Saturday as good and decent people, but we've also heard from ethnic minority Britons who were afraid to go out in central London on Saturday. Does that concern you at all?
On the question of trust in reform, I mean, I think it's a very legitimate challenge to Nigel and his colleagues about why people should trust them, and their job is to demonstrate that they can be trusted. I mean, on a personal level, they've never been in government before, so they haven't got a track record to defend. Nigel himself has a tremendous track record of consistent commitment to the causes that he has stood for. He doesn't get shaken. And I think people can trust him as a person because they know who he is and they know what he stands for. And despite everything that gets thrown at him, and sometimes he hasn't been doing so well in the polls, he still remains the same. And I think that is what the public fundamentally look to. And what myself and former colleagues have done in joining him is they're coming to join the Reform Party. And what we are doing today is announcing a process of getting serious as a government in waiting. We're not being arrogant, certainly not hubristic about the expectation of winning. We're ahead in the polls. Doesn't mean that's going to stay that way. We're not predicting victory, but we are anticipating victory, and we are doing the responsible thing, as Nigel said earlier, of ensuring that if we are fortunate enough to win the support of the public, we will be ready with a plan. And I think that is going to be the crucial thing that convinces the public that when they change ministers, they're actually going to get a change of government. So it won't be a series of sound bites in a manifesto. It'll be a properly worked out plan with a serious legislative programme and a programme of change in the system itself. And I hope that that will convince serious-minded voters, including just in the mainstream, in the centre of politics, who want to get shot of this failing Labour government, that you can rely on reform.
I didn't come out of semi-retirement last year for fun. I didn't come out of semi-retirement for a career. I came out of it because I genuinely believe that unless we get radical change, that we are headed for a very, very bleak future. And I think the sheer number of 30-somethings that are now leaving this country because they want to get on, they want to build a business, they want to make money, and they're fleeing, is just one little illustration of how much trouble we're in. So we're doing this not because we want to be hold high offices of state. We're doing this because we believe we're the only people that can bring the change that is needed. As for the march again on Saturday, look, if some people were offended by it or felt worried by it, then that is a great shame. Tell you what's even worse, the fact that over 50% of women don't feel safe walking the streets of London. Can you believe that in our capital city? Can you believe it? And by the way, that's not just at night time. It includes during daytime too. Righty-ho, Eleanor Wheatley from Guido Fawkes. We're rattling through here.
Nigel, what is your view?
So that is an extraordinary bombshell announcement, not a whisper of it anywhere, Miriam.
Right.
And Danny Kruger, as you know, because you worked with him in that Tory pressure group, New Conservatives, is one of the Tory parliamentary party's great thinkers.
Yep. Yes, I mean, he is a friend of mine. I have nothing but good to say about him. Extraordinary politician.
With great time, and we're now joined by the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch. Kemi, good morning to you.
Good morning.
That is a political disaster to lose an MP of such calibre as Danny Kruger.
Well, I think what this is actually showing is that there are quite a lot of people who are distracted by Westminster politics rather than what is actually going on in our country. Our Prime Minister is having a political crisis. The economy is in freefall. There's only one party that is dealing with this. We're the ones who have hauled him to talk about the ambassador he needed to sack, Peter Mandelson. We're the ones who started pointing to his Deputy Prime Minister's failure on her property issues, not paying her taxes. While we were doing that, where was Nigel Farage? In the US, telling everyone our country is North Korea. The fact of the matter is, the biggest issue facing the country now is the economy. We need to live within our means, and no one except the Conservative Party is focused on that. If people don't want to sit within the new policies that we're talking about, then I can understand, but I need to make sure that my party continues to face the key issues the country is dealing with right now, and that is what Labour is doing to our country.
I understand that, but it's still for the Tory party to lose somebody like Danny Kruger, who's very experienced, he's very clever, he's got lots of ideas on policy, and he says the mistake that's been made in the last year was the leader of the Conservative Party, that's you, disappearing from public view for more than a year. Is that a fair criticism?
Well, I think the fact that, well, you can see that I'm literally on here talking to you right now, as I am every single day, making a lot of the case for why Labour is going in the wrong direction and why we need to fix it. And I'm not here to say that the Conservative Party got everything perfect. If we did, we would not have lost the election last year. My job is to make sure that we have a proper plan for government. There is not an election today, there is an election in 4 years' time, and we are using our time wisely to make sure that people understand what we're about. That's why today I'm on a farm here talking about the family farms tax. There are farmers in this country who are closing down. We've heard reports about suicides because they can't deal with Labour's tax burden. So I'm out here talking about what real people are dealing with, while other people are holding press conferences in Westminster talking about who's shifting to which party. That is not what most of your viewers care about. They care about who's going to make their lives better. And I'm the only person right now who is focused on talking about that.
But they will be wondering, Kemi, won't they, Kemi Badenoch, why somebody of Danny Kruger's stature has decided to jump ship just a year into this Parliament? because he says he sees reform now as the only opposition, the only way to get rid of this Labour government.
Well, one of the things that has caused concern is the strict policies I'm putting in on welfare. We need to live within our means. Conservative Party is the only party, for example, that wants to make sure that we have a two-child benefit cap. I know Danny had written a paper about how that should be lifted. So there are policy disagreements. But if people are leaving because of policy disagreements, then that means that the message that I'm putting out there is clear. But if people are leaving just because of poll ratings, then we have a problem. What we saw with Labour was that they were telling people everything they wanted to hear. They got into government and they didn't know what to do. We now see Reform doing the same thing. They're telling everybody what they want to hear, but they don't actually have a plan for how they're going to fix government. If the only way they can solve that is by stealing Conservatives, then I think that that actually makes my case. What I'm doing is working on a plan, and at the election, the public is going to have a choice between serious fiscal responsibility with Conservatives or people who are just telling everyone whatever they want to hear, which is actually what Labour and Reform have in common.
You've got so few MPs, Kemi Badenoch, you can't afford to lose anymore because you're only, what are you now, down to 120, 119? You can't afford to lose any more, and the worry will be, surely, if somebody like Kruger goes, others will follow suit.
What I know is that this is part of the process of us making sure that we can define what the Conservative Party means for the future. We just suffered a historic defeat. What is amazing is that the government is also now having a crash in its poll ratings because it did not have a plan for dealing with the very serious problems that our country has, especially to do with the economy. Anybody who thinks that this is all about poll ratings and who's up or who's down is not paying attention. This is not a problem that is just affecting the UK. France is having a similar problem. We have a huge issue across the Western world, and we need parties that are going to be serious and who are going to focus on that. That is what I'm making sure the Conservative Party is going to be able to do. That's why I'm here on a farm talking about real everyday issues. How do we make sure that we have food security? How do we make sure that we have farming fit for the next generation? How do we make sure that we encourage people to stay in our country, be entrepreneurs? That's what it's all about. If people decide that they don't like the policies we have and they want to go to other parties, we will get other people who agree with us. It is a long process. It's not a short process. It's going to be very tough, but I'm a tough person. I can deal with it.
Just finally, is the Tory party finished?
If it was finished, then we wouldn't be seeing Labour in real trouble with the loss of their ambassador just before they have a state visit. The fact of the matter is the Conservative Party is the only opposition. While we were out there pointing out that Labour was bringing in tax rises while the Deputy Prime Minister wasn't paying her taxes, where was Nigel Farage? In the US, telling everyone that our country was North Korea. I am here acting in the British national interest, not here just doing this because it's showbiz or because it's a game. I care about the people in this country. I care about the children that we're bringing up, what sort of country they're going to have, what sort of society they're going to grow up in, and I'm very focused on those issues. The Conservative Party is the only party that can deal with this, and I'm making sure that we're getting fit for the next election.
All right, that is Kemi Badenoch, who is the leader of the Conservative Party, speaking to us from France. Kemi, thank you so much for joining us. Very good to talk to you. We're going to go back to that Reform UK conference, but just we're going straight back to the conference. Kemi, we're going to listen to Nigel Farage and Danny Kruger.
He just happens to see that we are the vehicle through which he can achieve the things that he wants to see for the country, not the current failing Conservative Party. I think, I mean, to be honest with you, if he'd joined from the Labour Party, if he'd been elected on a Labour manifesto and come, then I think perhaps in that situation the voters in the constituency would say, well, hang on, surely we've got the right to have a say on this. Generally, the public don't like by-elections. Generally, the public don't like being asked to vote if they think it's unnecessary. And just as we've had defections in Wales, we've had defections in Scotland, and here. No, there's no need for by-elections. Other parties don't do them either. Be slightly careful what you say. There's no loan being made of any kind, because that really would raise very serious questions. I've answered the question earlier on to Chris Mason. You know, I spent the money to get an independent King's Counsel tax advisor last week to say everything that has been done is legal. Well, I'm not going to say any more. And I would advise people not to say in print or anywhere else that I have done something to break the law when it comes to stamp duty. I would advise that quite strongly. Penultimate question, Archie Mitchell, Independent.
Hello. Mr. Kruger, in the past you've said that marriages between men and women are the only possible basis for a safe and successful society. Is that something you stand by, Nigel? Is that something that you welcome in reform?
I think one thing for certain is children who have two stable parents have a better chance in life. And the most stable relation, well, maybe not my example, but the most stable relationships, the ones that last the longest, tend to be between men and women. I'm not absolutist about this in any way at all. I do just happen to think there's an awful lot of kids in the country not getting the kind of start at home or at school that they deserve. Last question, Aletha Adu from The Guardian.
Mr. Kruger, last month I asked Mr. Farage about the costs of his mass deportation plans because what he was floating as something that could amount to around £10 billion, near identical plans had also been floated as costing at about £47.5 billion. Do you take back your remarks that reform will spend money like drunken sailors? And now that you're in this position, do you think that you'll be able to stop reform and your colleagues from making jokes and simply saying, you know, we can get these plans done because Zaya Youssef is good at maths? And Mr. Farage, what is your direct message to police officers, 26 of those who were left injured at this weekend's rallies? You are levelling some heavy accusations at them, those who are trying to do their jobs, that they are conducting two-tier policing, but how is this helpful to them?
Yeah, I mean, 26 police officers being injured is horrendous. And people will say it's not as bad as Notting Hill, it's not as bad as other demonstrations, but it is horrible, it is bad. I feared something like that would happen. There is no defence of the use of violence that some people used on Saturday, but I do repeat, not defending any of it, but I do repeat, the vast majority of those who caught the train to London for the day were good, ordinary, decent people.
Just on the point about reform spending plans, firstly, I do have great confidence in Zia Youssef's ability to put together a comprehensive and workable plan, and part of what we intend